Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iterade, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Miguel Iterade back here on the Lights Out podcast. And Mike, we are about to have a brush with immortality.
Ooh. So Matt Brown. All right. So there's a couple of things going on here. One, dude's a savage. There's no doubt. But two, he doesn't do a lot of interviews. So we oftentimes, Miguel, I think your cat's making an appearance behind you right now.
That really bothers you, doesn't it?
At times. Chris's Instagram really kind of comes through for us. This is one of those instances. And Matt, there's very little video. There's only one fight video that I could find on his independent career. So this is just all research. Dude, I really busted my butt just trying to get something. It took nowhere near the time as some of these other things, other ones do, based on the fact that there's so little available. But I saw Matt fight 5 or 6 times regionally. So I just kind of called some of the people that were there and just kind of rehashed some of the memories that we could put together. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can like, share, subscribe, Miguel, that helps us out.
Yep. And Matt Brown, last comment here before we bring him and Chris aboard. Active still. He's scheduled to fight coming up in a couple of months and stuff. And that's a twist I enjoy. I love the retired guys because you can get, really sink your teeth into it. There's a little bit of a different edge to the guys that still have a UFC contract and are still, trying to compete at that level because that's a task in itself. So we're going to see what Matt Brown's made of in terms of up here too. I think it's going to be way advanced because he's been there for, a decade and a half. So this one is what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the growth, all the likes and shares and all that stuff you guys are doing. Good things. We keep hearing from people just about different episodes they're listening to, and things are working. I appreciate all the hardcore people who listen to every one of these. That's fantastic. As you can see, the usual crew here. However, we have one of the guys right now who it's awesome because whenever people ask me, who do I like to watch fight? This guy's name is always one of the 2 or 3 that pop up because I'm like, I want people who fight. I like Donald Cerrone. I like, Matt Brown. I like Robbie. I like the guys who come and actually fight. And so we got Matt Brown right now. Good to see you, brother. How the hell you been?
I'm doing great, man. Just watching some football on this Sunday. That was a good game. Just ended there. That's why I was a little bit late. I was like, man, you got to give me 10 minutes. I got to see how this fucking game's going to end, man.
What the hell's wrong with it? You run it on that and then you don't even get a playoff, man. That was terrible. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, that was a bad call for sure. But I don't know, man. Like if it would have worked, we would have said it was genius, Like they were all playing the sidelines and he ran up the middle. It seemed like it would make, I don't know.
What game?
I'm glad I'm not a coach.
Cowboys versus the 49ers. They're on like the 30-yard line or 35, and there's like 10 seconds left, and he ran it up the middle and tried to get there and spike it, and then the clock ran out. I'm like, dude, you didn't even get the Hail Mary attempt. You didn't even get the throw in the end zone. But oh well, I'm not a flip. I don't really care anymore.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm over a fight fan.
But you see, I make bets with my kids on every game, and they got to do. They love football, so they got to do cleaning and house chores and shit when they lose. So I get very interested in the game. Like I need my fucking dishes done and my floors.
It's cheap labor.
It's cheap labor, man. But but I lose more than I win. So I've been out. I pay them in Bitcoin when I lose. So I've been out a little bit of Bitcoin.
Nice.
I would try to maybe talk them into push-ups. I'll give you some push-ups. How many do you need?
It's legal child labor. I'm all for it.
So Chris Lytle.
Yeah, you're in Costa Rica. You can do whatever you want down there, I bet.
So Chris Lytle.
Costa Rica? Wait, this guy's in Costa Rica? Who's this guy?
Yo.
Me, my name is Miguel. We don't know each other, but I used to be the matchmaker for Hook and Shoot, kind of in Indiana from the old days.
Oh shit! Okay.
And he also
I was
What else, Miguel?
I did some Abu Dhabi tournaments like through 2007. I was the main organizer for them. So like I've been around a little bit, but we
Anything
never
else,
run into
Miguel?
each other.
Hold on.
Little
where
thing
else?
called Bodog.
Yeah, you know, I was the last matchmaker for Bodog. Like I was around till about 2010, and then I dropped off the face of the planet. So
Where are you at in Costa Rica?
I'm about 15 minutes from the airport in Alajuela.
No shit. I was just there. When was that? Last March, I think.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, that was right when COVID started. Oh, fuck.
What are you doing out there? This vacation?
Yeah, like so kind of one of the things I do now is before every camp, I'll just take like a weekend vacation somewhere just to get my mind clear. And I chose Costa Rica that time, man. Just went out there just by myself, spent the weekend surfing, and
Nice.
yeah, man.
What city? Were you in Chaco?
What's that?
Jaco?
I did not go to Jaco, but I know about Jaco.
Okay. Yeah, it's a real cool surf spot. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Chris Lytle, one of the coolest things about Matt Brown, not only is that, let me rephrase that. One of the more interesting things about Matt Brown is his pre-UFC stuff and even pre-fighting. Matt, obviously, you're a pretty big, heavy metal fan, correct?
You got it.
Man. So, Matt was actually at the show where Dime Bag Darrell from Pantera was murdered.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That didn't
Really?
happen in Ohio. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about that? I mean,
Are you cool with that?
I'm a Pantera. Yeah. I think I'm the only Pantera fan here besides these two. These two guys go more for country music, I think.
No, I'm a huge Pantera fan.
No,
man.
no. I mean, Chris and Mike. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not a country guy.
Yeah, that was definitely a crazy night, man. I was about 2 or 3 people back from the stage, and I mean, it was the first song that Damageplan was playing, and we heard some shots go off. I thought it was like firecrackers or something. I mean, last thing you think is like someone's getting shot. Look up, Dime Bag's down, the music kind of fades off, and the dude had like a hostage or something, and told me a lot about myself, man, because I was one of the few people that tried to rush the stage, and then we kind of got pushed out of the way. And then he started firing off shots into the crowd. I started to run away. And as I started to run away, I kind of turned around and I was like, dude, I'm not fucking getting shot in the back by this cocksucker. So I faced him, and looked at him. And then there was like a concrete pillar. I kind of stood behind that for a few minutes. And it wasn't even, I mean, it was a long time ago, and the time kind of is all blurred at the time. But, I remember watching from backstage, the off-duty cop, I believe his name was Niggemeyer, came in, and I watched him blow the dude's head clean off his shoulders, man. And then went outside for a minute because they were kind of like escorting people out, forcing everybody to get out. And then I worked my way back in because I was like, I want to see what the fuck happened, I come back in, Dime Bag's laid out, blood all over his hair, his guitar still on him. And that's the image I remember the most, man, was Dime Bag laying there. And you know what? It was a tragic night, but at the same time, man, Dime Bag wouldn't want to go any other way, man. He would want to go, his last moments on stage, playing for the fans. I met Dime Bag before that. One of the coolest guys ever in history I've ever met. So I'll tell you what, man, that's a hell of a way to go out.
So, there was 3 people got killed that night, and then another 3 got shot. Jeffrey Thompson.
Right next to me.
Pardon me?
Guy got shot right next to me, man.
Did he die or did he live? Or do you know?
No, he lived. Yeah. I think it hit his arm or something. Again, everything's like a little blurry. It was a long time ago, but I still remember him just like screaming, like "Holy shit!" And that's when I realized that it wasn't just I don't know. It was fucking for real now, man.
Yeah.
Like, this motherfucker is going to kill some people.
How long before you went to another concert, man? That had to affect you a little bit.
I wasn't afraid to go back to a concert at all. I don't remember exactly how long, but, I remember going to the, I forget what they call it. It was like a little memorial thing for Dime Bag, maybe that weekend at the Alrosa Villa where he was shot. everybody from a concert came and did like a vigil for him. And that turned out to be one of the wildest nights I ever seen in my life, man. There was dudes running around from making cops chase them, just doing anything they could to fucking cause a riot. I remember one dude was streaking. I mean, this is December in Ohio. I mean, it's like 30 degrees. This dude's running naked through the crowd with the cops chasing him, like just, saying, fuck the cops, long live Dime Bag and shit. And it was just like one of the craziest parties ever, man.
I got a rule. I don't streak in the wintertime. I always do it in the summer. That coldness. This ain't me. I'm not.
I like that.
Hey, man, so that was before you started training and everything. That was before you were a fighter, correct?
Yeah, I don't think I think
2004 is when it took place, December 8th.
Okay.
So I already fought once, but I hadn't trained yet. So, if you know my story, like I fought a few times before I ever trained. I just thought that, Chris remembers back then. I'm sure you guys remember too. I mean, it was just a different world, man. Like these shows they'd put on, you just go and sign up, man. I would do a bunch of coke and just be like, I thought I was the tough guy on the block. And, I thought it was, the guy that you're fighting in the bar, except you're fighting in the cage. And then. Okay.
So let me start a little before that, man. Can you tell everybody like your background, not with fighting, but what sports did you do growing up? How did you get from A to B? What did you do? What was your sports? Were you just a heavy metal guy? What did you do?
Yes. So I was actually really good at sports growing up. In junior high, I was a real good wrestler and football player. I was on the path to breaking the record for the mile in our school.
Wow.
I had a lot of good shit going for me. And then around my freshman year of high school was the last year that I played sports. I just kind of got into the wrong crowd. Well, I'll put it this way. I discovered drugs, alcohol, and pussy. And I was like, dude, after
the
school,
dangerous combo.
Yeah, I was like, man, I can go sweat with the dudes and play some kids game, or I can go smoke a bong, drink a 40, and maybe get laid, right? So, the choice it got tougher every year. But yeah, I just got into the wrong crowd, and that was kind of, on the same note, that was kind of around the time, maybe around like my senior time. So that was around like sophomore when I first started getting into drugs, alcohol stuff. Around when I was a senior is when I kind of started digging Pantera, because it was the first time I'd listened to heavy metal that was like positive. They had a like Vulgar Display of Power and stuff was like an uplifting album type of music, man, rather than like most of the metal I was listening to, like Cannibal Corpse was about killing people and shit and worshiping Satan and all this. And I was like, damn, this can be a positive thing and make you feel good, So, but my background was really, my dad was a machinist. He had a machine shop. I grew up in an extremely small town, population of 200 people. My graduating class had 40 people. So we were like in my mind, I hadn't seen a skyscraper till after high school, never seen like airplanes, all that stuff. So my entire world was like this little bubble, this small town. So I had no idea the things you can do in this world, right? So I think that was kind of what drove me to drugs and alcohol was, I was just basically going to be a machinist my whole life. I was going to take care of my dad's machine shop and that's it. There's no world out there for you. So I was like, dude, I don't really like that shit. I mean, I do like it, but I'm like, I want to fucking do some fun shit, So.
Well, Matt, you talk about drugs. You talk about drugs. Are you like sober now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you drink alcohol?
Very rarely. I'll have a little bit of wine with the lady or something, but I have no interest in it.
Now, what was you mentioned coke? Was it something that it happened because you were young, or did you have a problem with it later on down the line? Because that, just the description of the small town and stuff, just getting out of all that cycle is a very big thing.
It's tough, man. And I didn't have a lot of problems with most drugs other than meth was kind of my drug that really took me down. And then, of course, if y'all know my story, I did die of a heroin overdose, technically. Had to be revived at the hospital.
Pre-Narcan.
Yeah, it was pre-Narcan. I was fortunate when it happened to me. I was with a lady that was a nurse, not necessarily like one of the good nurses, but she kind of knew, but at least she kind of knew what was going on and knew that I was in a bad situation and needed to get some help real quick. So she took me in. But meth was really the one that kind of fucked me up the worst, man. And I got real lucky, to be honest, because I was completely addicted and I ended up going to jail. Did 6 months, or I got sentenced to 6 months. I actually only did like 3 of them. And that was how I quit, man. And I was like, dude, I didn't realize like how bad it was until I didn't have it.
Did you get it? Was the sentence for actually having and possessing it, or was it like stuff you were doing to get it?
No, so I went to jail for it was a probation revocation. So I was on probation for probably, I don't know, 10 different things, had, DUIs, and I had a couple misdemeanor assaults and, just minor stuff, no felonies.
Okay.
Matt, I think sometimes people, obviously no one wants anybody to be in jail, but jail saves a lot of people, man. It's like when you're in the throat of addiction, heads in such a cloud that you don't realize that your normal is so far gone until you get sober. Sometimes a good 3-4 months in jail, man, get somebody's head right.
Yeah, it did me wonders. That's a good point, man. That's exactly what it was, my normal was, spending a weekend in jail. My normal was, being up for 2 or 3 days at a time on a meth binge. My normal was drinking, 12 beers a day minimum. So that, that was a very average day. That wasn't like we're fucking partying today. That was just like, well, what we gonna do, man? Get a fucking case and let's go.
So is it after this point? At what point do you decide I want to start training, and how does that come about?
So that was, like I said, I started fighting. I fought a couple times before I trained. I did, these couple fights, and I kept winning. So I who thought to train, right? I'm fucking beating these guys up, right?
You don't need it.
Overrated.
I think I had 3 of them that I won before I ever even stepped into a gym. But then finally went against this one guy. Usually I remember his name. I can't remember it right now, but it was in one of Mark Matheny's shows. I'm sure you guys know Mark Matheny.
Yeah.
Is in one of his shows, and I actually beat a guy earlier that night. And then this guy was sort of the next big thing at the time, at least around where we were at. And his opponent didn't show up, and they were like, hey, you want to fight again? So the earlier fight that I had, the dude just tapped out for basically no reason, like his leg cramped up or some shit. So I was like, dude, yeah, I'll fight him again. And this kid just beat the living fuck out of me, man. I mean, he just pieced me up like I'd never been pieced up before, maybe not after. I mean, I didn't touch the guy, and he's just hitting me. I don't know how he didn't knock me out, but, we get in the back, and he's like, dude, I don't know how I didn't knock you out, man. And so that was when I was like, maybe I should, do like some formal training. And so I went to a gym. I moved to Columbus the next week. My brother lived here. He was going to the college here. And I said, man, you got an extra room for me? I'm going to come up there. I want to get away from this life that I've been living and want to change things around. And went to a gym that week. And I was fortunate that I met some really good people there, man. Some real good pros. And then
where'd you start at?
So this gym, it was called Bo Kimley's Martial Arts. So it was like
I knew it.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was like a karate gym or something, but Coleman apparently had been running the Hammer House out of there, which he wasn't there whatever days I was there for whatever reason. But there was 3 or 4 pro fighters train, just using the facility to train out of there. And I just coincidentally ran into him there. There was a guy named Braden Workman, which you guys might have heard of back in the day. There's a guy named Eli Ayers. He was a big King of the Cage fighter. And then Dorian Price had come in a few times, who is still my coach today and still probably the biggest influence on my striking.
So Dorian Price, just kind of, let's come full circle. So Bo Kimley was an early promoter in Ohio. At one point, there would be 7 shows or 8 shows in a single weekend in Ohio pre-regulation. Like the amount of MMA taking place in Ohio, no other state could even understand or comprehend how much was going on there. So Bo Kimley, I think he's from like Sweden. He's operating his business illegally because he doesn't have like papers or anything like that. He ends up getting like deported, everything, but the guy had a hell of a run. He was a real cool promoter.
He might have got deported, but I know the reason he actually moved back to Sweden, at least what he told me, was he got divorced and he lost everything. And he's like, well, fuck it. If I'm getting divorced, I'm going back to my home. But I didn't know he got deported. But
yeah.
But anyway,
he didn't like have his all his documentation in order. But go ahead, man.
But yes, so and then Bo Kimley, I fought on one of his shows. That was actually the first fight that I ever trained for in my life. I think it was 2 weeks after I went into his gym. He was putting on a show, and he was like,
"That's him.
You want to fight on this next show?" I said, "Yeah, man, no problem. Let's go." And that was where I first time I ever met Mark, actually. So they brought him in to give us the speech before and everything. All I remember was, Coleman was half drunk, and he was like, "You guys got, make sure you respect the leg kicks. They're for real. They actually hurt."
Post Hizzo.
They kicked this guy then. All right.
So
okay, so I got a question real quick. Are all those fights you talked about, are those on your record or not? Some of them are, some are. Any of them?
Dude, I think there's only one amateur fight on my record, and that was that first one that I did with Bo Kimley.
Okay. No, yeah. I got the Extreme Fighting Challenge 11 in Columbus, Ohio. You fought Gary Young. Is that the Bo Kimley show?
That was Bo Kimley.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I did probably, before I turned pro, I probably had 10, 15 fights, man. Like I fought for Scott Shealy a few times, Mark Matheny a few times. Aaron Kroll.
What about Mike Bowerstock?
That's from Fort Wayne area.
He used to go Ohio. He went everywhere. He went Youngstown.
I might have. I think I did, but I think I fought for him as a pro, though. I'm not sure if it was amateur or pro. It might have been amateur.
So when you fought Gary Young, you win by rear naked choke. I apologize, Miguel. You win by rear naked choke.
Is that what they got listed as?
That's what it says.
No, I finished him. I choked him out with a schoolyard choke, a head arm scarf hold that I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I think Bo taught it to me that week. So, Chris, you might know this. There's a submission there, right? From scarf hold where you pull on the elbow and it's actually a shoulder lock, right?
Yeah.
You know this?
So Coleman did the Severn? You talking about that?
Yes. Now, that's what I was trying to do. And then he went out. And I've never choked anybody unconscious. I don't think I've ever seen anybody go unconscious from that choke. But he went unconscious that night, somehow, some way. And I was trying to break his shoulder.
Did you all right, so I gotta ask this. So Matt, your first win in front of Mark Coleman, did you jump up on the cage wall and celebrate? Did you climb it?
I was so fucking tired, man. I don't think I could even stand up, bro. I was like, so my fights before that, like I said, I drink a little bit, do some coke, whatever, but I didn't really I didn't even, you didn't even think about it. It's like, you just think like you're fighting at the bar or something. This one, now all of a sudden, I'm doing it for real. It's a real, it's to me, the Promo West where they were doing the fights, the arena, this is the fucking big time, Phil Baroni was on the same show, I think.
Wow.
I think so. He might have.
He was.
Can't remember.
He was on that show. He fought, oh God.
Chris Cruitt.
Chris Cruitt. He works over at Anchor Hockey. Chris Cruitt. Yeah.
So, to me,
Anchor
this
Glass.
is a fucking big show. And I trained for this. Dude, I was so my dad came. This is the first, I hadn't even talked to my dad in years, and now he comes and watches and he's there, and my brothers are there. I'm fucking scared out of my mind, man. Coleman's here. I'm on the big, to me, this is a big show. I remember trying to warm up backstage, dude. And, you got 6-ounce gloves or 4-ounce gloves or something. And I couldn't even lift my arms up. I was like, how am I going to put my hands up? I was shaking. I was so scared, man. I was like, this shit's fucking crazy. And I remember just all day, man, being scared and nervous and all this shit going through my head. And I was like, dude, I should just fucking do some coke like I used to, but I wanted to take it. But I wanted to take it serious, so I took it serious, and it was a good learning lesson.
Yeah, you don't want to get too far out of your routine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Go do a couple lines. Let's go fight.
Hey, you ever notice, like, sometimes when you're in the locker room, they said, okay, hit the mitts for a minute. You start hitting them. You're like, man, I hit like a bitch right now. I can't hit hard and I'm slow. And you're like, I think now, like, that was just my body, like, trying to save its energy or something, not letting it hit hard. But I always felt, man, I'm weak. I'm tired. I'm not hitting good. And every time I tried to hit the mitts, I didn't feel good,
And you've probably done this before too. There's been times, it's been a long time, but where I would start to warm up, I bet, fuck that, I ain't warming up. Like, I don't have the energy to warm up. I got to save it for the ring. Especially like the short notice fights, right? You're like, dude, like, I only got, I got a half a tank here, bro. I can't be pushing down on the floor, the gas to the floor.
So your second fight is listed September 17th, Gladiator Fighting Series, Evan Sarnicki.
Oh, okay. They got that one listed. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And that dude, that's a kind of a funny story, man. So that guy, he was a big hype job, or a big hyped up guy, A lot of people were talking about him. He was a great jiu-jitsu guy. And I fucking fucked him up, is about all I could say. But then it wasn't 2-3 weeks later. What would you say, that was September?
This was September 17th.
Okay, so I guess more than a few months. It was because the Arnold Festival, I signed up for the grappling tournament there. And what do you know? It's Evan Sarnicki. It's me and Evan in the finals for, I think it's white belt or blue belt or something. And he fucking wrecked me, man. But geek.
Well, that just goes to show, there's a lot of people who do good without strikes, but you throw everything in there, it's a different animal, man. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are really slick, really talented. You start getting punched in the face, it's you're a pure fighter. I mean, so I can see that. I can see him being technically better at jiu-jitsu, but you being able to wreck the guy in a fight. Is that pretty much how it went, or you just have an off day? What do you think?
No, I think you're exactly right with that. I mean, he tried some, really technical stuff. He almost broke my arm. I mean, he had it. He was doing one of those arm bars. I think he did a flying arm bar, but I stayed standing, and he was hanging off. My arm's about to break, and these pure jiu-jitsu guys, they're not used to that, right? Like, especially because you're in the gym every day and you get an arm like that, they're going to tap, and that's what you get very accustomed to. And then you get a guy that's like, I'll let you fucking break my arm.
Yeah.
I'm not big on the let people break my arm shit, but that night, he just didn't crank it enough. Maybe another inch or so would have changed my mind, but and I still got my arm here. I still got a big bruise where he kicked me. That dude had some hard kicks. I still, not a bruise, but a big bump, man. It never went away.
Really? From your age?
Yeah, we got a bunch of that stuff. I'm sure Chris has the same, a bunch of scars and bumps and stuff that you're like, they just don't go away, man.
Yeah. Huh. So your first pro fight is at Higher Power Fighting. You had mentioned promoter Aaron Crowell. This was his show. And you fought Richard Martinez.
Yeah, Ricardo Martinez. Yeah. Still a friend of mine to this day. So yeah.
Were you friends beforehand or not until afterwards?
So we knew each other beforehand. We weren't like tight friends, but so Aaron had a construction business. I worked for him for a while. That's why I fought for his show, because he would get all these fighters and they'd all work for him. So we'd all go train after. And Aaron, he kind of had a pretty cool setup, because he'd have you fight for him, and then he'd be like, instead of paying you, I'll give you some work, or pay you extra on your paycheck, like different swindles, But yeah, you know, Ricardo, he was a good boxer, man. I think he won the Golden Gloves or you know, something. He won a good tournament in boxing, and you know, gave me a good fight, man. But you know, that was
how'd you win the fight?
I don't know. What does it say there, Mike?
Neck crank.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, to be honest, I don't actually. What I do remember about that fight, though. So Aaron's cage had the crossbar about belly button height. You guys remember these types of cages where, you know, so it was built from like a I don't know, a fucking dog fence or something, you know. So it had a crossbar about that high, and I was like, dude, I'm just gonna run him into that shit, you know. I was like, I'm not gonna strike or anything. I'm just gonna run him into that shit. And I did pretty hard, and you could tell it hurt him. I was
It was like an exposed bar. Yeah.
Dude, that was my whole fucking game plan, you know, and it worked.
You see the cage as a weapon. So Eric Crowell is one of those sad promoter stories. You know, kind of went downhill shortly after this. Actually passed away from heroin overdose. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a great guy too, man. It's terrible to hear. He was actually a really good guy. Looked out for his fighters. Good story. One of my amateur fights, apparently not listed there. Aaron put it on. It was in New Lexington, Ohio, which you never heard of because it's in the middle of nowhere. And so we get to the fight. It's in a gas station parking lot. This is how he set it up. He had a cage. He would take it anywhere. It's a gas station parking lot. We used the gas station bathroom as our changing rooms and warmed up on the gravel parking lot. Well, anyway, the doctor or the ER meds or somebody didn't show up. So the commission says, Aaron, you can't put on this fight. And you're going to get your license suspended. Aaron says, fuck that. I got all these guys already here. They're ready to fight. I'm putting on the show. Suspend my license. Fuck off. So the commission leaves. They're like, we're not going to have any part of this, right? So we have the fight anyway. There's no commission there. Matheny was the ref. The guy I'm fighting, he comes in, takes me down right away. Sean King, I believe was his name. I might have that wrong. Elbows me. You know, we're an amateur fight. You know, he's elbowing me, giving little headbutts and stuff. Call me names. He's like, you're a little bitch ass faggot. I'm gonna fuck you up, you know? You know, and I'm like, all right. So second round comes out. Now he's gassed out. He shoots in. I sprawl. He's turtled up on all fours. I look over at Mark and he gives me a little nod. And I kicked that motherfucker's head, soccer kick square off his shoulders, man. It was, you know, no commission. So, game, man.
Were you talking to him at the time as you were doing that stuff?
He was not at that time, I guess. But yeah, okay. You know, he's been talking to me the whole time, man.
That's what I mean. I figured maybe you were getting him a little payback now that he's telling.
I got him paid back by a soccer kicking his face off.
Matt, did you ever fight? Okay, so I'm working. I write occasionally for Full Contact Fighter. Have you ever fought in events that had headbutts in the rule set?
No.
Oh, there's only a few. I've only got like 3 or 4 guys, and I figured if anybody, you may have accidentally just kind of slipped in at the tail end.
I mean, I guess unless you consider that one in the rule set, because there was no rules that night.
I have a question. When you fought there, did they suspend all the fighters? Because they'll do that sometimes if you do an unlicensed fight, or do they not do it back then like that?
I didn't get suspended, so I don't know what else.
So May 16th.
I'm sorry. One of the things that's going on, though, is, you know, Ohio's not really a powerhouse commission, especially back then.
Dude, Bernie Profado's a prick.
Yeah, and they're pretty, as Mike mentioned, there's a lot of fights going on there, but like, what are you getting? Are you getting like $200 a pop at this point? Because you're fighting a lot. Are you getting raises, or are you still doing machine shop work?
Well, okay. So when I started fighting pro, well, you see, my first one there was for Aaron. I think he actually gave me a 4-wheeler for that first fight.
What?
He had a lot of like backdoor deals like that, you know what I mean? Because we all worked for him.
Snowblower.
It was
a pretty good deal.
You know, I think it was a Yamaha Blaster, if I remember right.
That's a good deal, actually, man. I'd have taken that.
I mean, it was worth more than, you know, $200 or $400 that I would have got. Right.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I was like, yeah, I'll take that. And I think I wrecked it like a week later and it completely fucked it up. But
Fun week though.
It was a fun week, right?
Hey, those $400 would have lasted less.
that's for sure. It would have lasted that night.
Yeah.
But so kind of the way that I work things around that time when I was first kind of, you know, when I went pro and I was like, I want to be a fighter, and you know, all I want to do is be in the gym. So I'd work a job for usually about half a month, any job I could get, construction, or you know, I did a UPS package handle, you know, just whatever kind of bullshit job, have enough money to pay the rent for the month, and then I'd quit the job so I could train the next 2 weeks, or you know, or get to a, you know, whatever next fight. You know, there was a couple fights, I'd say at least 3 or 4 fights I had where if I didn't win, I wasn't eating that month, you know, or I didn't know where I'd be getting my food from, I should say. So, you know, it wasn't no way to live, but you know, I said, like I said, when I got out of drugs and alcohol and stuff and partying and I committed myself to fighting, I told myself, I'm going to do this or I'm going to die trying. And if I die on those mats, then I'll be happier than if I die, you know, in a fucking bed because they're just again.
Yeah.
So did you, real quick, did you have this, like when you first started, you really dedicated yourself? Did you feel like, yeah, I'm gonna be able to do this? I mean, did you feel like making it to the UFC was a dream that, like unattainable? Or do you feel like I'm definitely making it there?
You know, I would say like it felt unattainable back then, right? Because especially like a small town kid like me, you know, like a big dream like that is just, you know, it was just a dream, man.
Unattainable.
So, yeah, it didn't really seem like it was within grasp. But again, I decided I'm going to be a martial artist, period.
Nice.
That's what I want to do. If I get to the UFC, that's the dream. That's what I'm shooting for. If not, then whatever, I'll stay on the mats.
Well, and back then too, it was even harder because they only put on about 6 fights a year in the UFC. You know what I mean? So it was a cooler era, in my opinion, because, you know, you looked forward to every fight. You knew everybody on the next card. You're like, oh, this fight's in a month and a half. And I know this guy. I mean, it's not the same anymore. It was, people don't realize how tough it was. There wasn't 100 people in the world under UFC contract back then. You know what I mean? It was different.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And that's what I mean. To me, it felt kind of unattainable. And that was actually when I got on the Ultimate Fighter, I had quit pursuing that dream. You know, I moved to New York and I was a personal trainer, but I was still on the mats every day. I worked at this gym that I worked at. They had a boxing ring in there and they had some mats and stuff. So it was a perfect deal for me, making good money, training fucking actresses and models and shit all the time. It was a beautiful life. But I'd given up on it. I was like, dude, I'm not ever going to get to the UFC. That might have been right after you beat me, actually, the first time. And
yeah, we're going to get into that. Chris, I mean, and Matt, I don't mean to interrupt you, but Chris, his path is so interesting. Like, if you look at his record, if you look at Matt's record, he is absolutely not supposed to be in the UFC. He slides in with the Ultimate Fighter and becomes just that Rocky Balboa grit that everyone's kind of like in love with when they watch Matt fight. Dana White sees it in person. Although Matt only won 2 fights in that house, he had a contract with the UFC before, like right after he won his first fight. Like Dana White's just like, this kid's a savage. Like this is what, you know, and that's the credit to Dana. Like
he recognized that.
Yeah, people fall in love with records. Dana recognizes savagery, just outright savagery. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that more when you talk like our build. I mean, you know, keep doing your thing. But yeah, I mean, when I first heard of who I was going to fight, you know, I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I think his record was like 11-5 or 11-6. Like, whatever, man.
Like 7-6.
I'm in the UFC. I can beat any Midwestern guy like that. Not the case, man. She was tough. So go ahead.
All right. So we're going to get there, Matt, because, dude, we've got some fights that we absolutely need your commentary on.
Mike, you were there.
Though, yeah. May 6, 2006. You get a fight in Texas on the International Freestyle Fighting against Pete Spratt.
Yeah, that was, man. If I in retrospect, that was I had this fucking manager. He was really he was a purple belt that was running this gym that I was going to. He was a fucking scumbag. You know, he was selling me out to go fight because, you know, he just told me, hey, you're fighting this Pete Spratt guy. And I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I went over to my buddy's house, you know, because I didn't have internet. So I went over to his house. I said, we got to see who this guy is. Why am I going to fucking Texas? I'd never even been on a plane before. You know, I go over there and first thing that comes up is Pete Spratt highlights. And I was like, holy shit, this is who I'm fighting?
He beat Lawler.
Yeah, man. And all you see is him, you know, in the UFC. And, you know, I would look up his record. I was like, this dude's got like 10, 12 UFC fights or something. You know, he's fought kickboxing all over the fucking world. I said, damn, I better go do some sprints. So I went over to the track and started doing some sprints. I said, I better get ready. And then the worst part about the whole thing, though, I go out there, I beat Pete Spratt. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I don't know if there was a commission in Texas or not. I think Pete even told me himself that I beat him. You know, Luder was in his corner, and I could hear them saying that I beat him. When I walked out, you know, the whole crowd was there. There was Luder was on the card. Dwayne Ludwig was on the card.
Who was the promoter?
I don't even know his name. It was some lawyer guy, and you know, he put on this card for these Texas. He put on this card for these Texas guys. You know,
sure.
I mean, you know, so that's the thing, and they bring in a bunch of sacrificial lambs for these. I was a sacrificial lamb. Yeah. That's what I was. I was a sacrificial lamb, and my manager, quote unquote manager,
who was it?
Dustin Ware is his name.
Oh.
And,
Okay.
But anyway, so, you know, he gets me out there as a sacrificial lamb. I beat Pete, and everybody knows it. Everybody that was there, and there was. I went on the underground for him not too long after that. You know, that was the thing back then. If you were a fight fan, that you were on there.
Oh yeah,
getting on news. There was a bunch of threads about it. I was like, holy shit, I'm on underground for him, and there was a bunch of threads about it. So. You know, that's one of them that leaves a real bad taste in my mouth to this day. Because
would you get paid?
Oh, I don't know, $500 probably. I don't know.
So Matt, here's my question for you. Do you think, like, you know, when you put on a fight, you know, you're not really in charge of who's judging. It's the state provides that usually.
Yeah.
Do you think that was just the state was like one to hope their guy wins, or you think they
pre-commission
by the crowd, or what was it pre-commission?
Well, that's what I don't. I don't think Texas had a commission then, did they?
They didn't have a commission.
Okay, so it's probably
his
buddies then. Okay, yeah.
It's 07, 08 was when Texas came out.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Matt, how'd that go? Did you drive down to Texas, or because I see Cedric Marks fought Travis Luder that you mentioned was on the card, so it's another Ohio guy. How was the trip?
No, they flew me down there. Like I said, it was the first time I ever got on a plane.
I got you. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. I think you're doing the car with Cedric. Believe
yeah.
it. Shit like that's happened. So
it's just Cedric the Spider, right?
Yeah, Marks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was one of the guys that I still remember to this day. He was one of the guys that started one of the threads on the underground. I was like, damn, another pro sticking up for me, man. This is pretty cool.
That's cool.
Did you take him down, or did you stand and trade with him?
I took him down a lot. I mean, come on. I mean, Pete Spratt's the easiest guy to take down in history.
And
I think he's just fell down.
Yeah, standing with Pete Spratt isn't good for your health either.
Nah, I mean, I stood with him some, and I just remember being like, wow, that's not, what I was expecting. I mean, he gets some kicks here and there, and I landed some good shots on the feet. I'd love to see the video sometime, but I mean, primarily, my game plan was, take him down, and I wasn't like a wrestler or anything, but I was like, this is a pretty simple game plan that, again, my manager wasn't really he was kind of just there, but everybody in the gym was like, dude, take him down. It'll be an easy fight.
What did Pete say afterwards to you? Did he say anything to you?
Not a lot. I kind of heard him when I said, you know, I know that he knew that I won. I heard him kind of talking amongst themselves while we're still in the cage. And I talked to him a little bit after. We went to some club, and I talked to him a little bit after. And I was just asking him for kickboxing advice. Honestly, I was like, dude, you know, how do you get more cardio? You know, different things. And
Cool.
you know, I didn't really get into it. I was like, you know, it is what it is. What are you gonna do?
Oh, it's not gonna change anything. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I love fighting, man. That's all there is to it. Like I've never been big, you know, have to win every time. I mean, I certainly try to win. You know, I'm a fucking warrior, and I'm gonna try to beat everybody's ass that I can. But you know, wins and losses, man. You wake up the next day and you fucking go on about your day. That's what a warrior does.
Yeah. So 14 days later, you fought for Broken Reflection MMA.
Who did I fight? What's
Brian
up?
King.
Oh, okay. That was only 14 days later. Okay.
Yeah.
Broken Reflection, Mike?
Dude, Miguel, wait, Matt, let me interject here. There were so many MMA promotions happening in Ohio, they ran out of names. Like, I'm not kidding.
For sure. I knew guys that fought Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Ohio.
And then like a Wednesday show would pop up all the time as well. Yeah, there's
yeah. I don't even remember that fight.
You win by armbar, and then you get invited down to Florida to the Absolute Fighting Championship. So you get a little taste of the American Top Team, and I think Carlisle Diaz may have been a matchmaker for this, and it was Mikey Gomez was your opponent.
Oh yeah. So okay, I thought you were going different fighting Florida. Yeah, Mikey's a tough motherfucker, man. He should have been in the UFC. He should have been fighting. He beat my ass, man. I'll straight up say he beat the fuck out of me. You know, I had a torn MCL. I don't know if that fucking means anything, but
damn. Did you have it before the fight or during the fight?
No, I tore it before the fight, but
okay.
You know, that was one of those where it was like, dude, if I don't win this fight, I don't know how much I'm gonna eat this month. You know, yeah. I can't afford to not go down there, man. But you know, that's
the shit thing about MMA. That's the shit thing about MMA is that win-lose stuff, man. You do a boxing match, you get a guaranteed purse, but in MMA it's half. Like you lose split decisions, it's like, man.
Yeah,
that's
a good point.
Or like losing to Pete Spratt when you won. Ugh.
That's the worst, man. You know, but also I'm not going to take a single thing away from Mikey, man. I think even with my MCL the way it was, he probably would have beat my ass anyway, man. He was a good black belt and a real good fighter, man. He probably would have. Good.
So back then, are you still training at the same gym at this point?
You know, that one, I think I was, but I was, you know, my friend that I was living with, we had a little garage gym, and that was kind of our main little spot. Me and him would train a lot in there. I think we just went to the gym just to get, you know, with different bodies and stuff, but we'd get up and spar before work and shit, you know.
I love it.
Now, when you get down to Florida, you actually, at that point, American Top Team's already starting to be, you know, like the gym is 20,000 square feet and stuff like that. Are you feeling a little bit of like, you know, I got to get somewhere else, or I got to up my game? Like, how does that register for you?
At that time, I mean, I don't know. There wasn't really no thought about any of that shit. I was just like, you know, just train your balls off, man. Fight. I mean, like I said, I haven't really changed a lot, man. Like, I fucking love fighting, bro. That's all there is to it, man. You know, and I just want to fight people. You know, I want to test myself and go out there and have a war and, you know, come home and have a beer, man.
I love it. Do you have some good talent down over in Ohio? Will you go down sometimes and train with Rich Franco and George Urgell, just go all over the place? Or you kind of stay over in Columbus, or just kind of, do you travel a lot?
Not as much as I used to, you know.
No, I'm talking back then. I'm talking back when you're at this point in your career.
yeah, back then, if I could afford to, yeah, I would go. You know, George's was the shit back then. You know, that was a hell of a gym.
Yeah.
Those Militich guys would come over, and Rich would always have guys coming in and out. And you know, I wasn't really in tight enough or good enough or recognized enough or whatever to really get in the work with the high level guys. But I would go just to watch Rich. You know, I mean, I loved Rich so much, man. And you know, and if I could get in one question and just learn a little bit, you know, I was just that kind of guy. And that's what I look for in fighters these days, you know, when, you know, I have my own gym, and, you know, I look for these guys that want it that bad, that they'll fucking, you know, so many of these guys come in and they just think they should be in the UFC now. You know, you got 2 pro fighters, you know, they want to go pro right away and this shit. And I'm like, man, you gotta, you know, you should be, you know, Coleman comes in the gym. I'm like, dude, you should be offering Coleman, you should be carrying his bags in and out for him, getting him coffee. And, you know, you could get so much knowledge, you know, you should be given before you take. And all these guys, they just want to take. Don't get me wrong, we got some really good guys, some real good talent. So I'm not saying that for everybody, but as a general statement, I think that's the way this world is right now. I think it's a generational thing. And I think there's a lot of young punks out there that think they get their Instagram big enough to get in UFC, and it might be fucking true, you know, but
you ain't gonna fight, girl. You ain't gonna win. Yeah. So when you would go, I mean, did I know you were still pretty new then? Did Rich and them, they treat you all right? I mean, they just felt like you were just some new guy? Were they all pretty cool to you back then?
Yeah, but you know, like, you know, Rich was like a champion back then, you know, so it's, you know, he's not just gonna let anybody come in and spar with them. And
sure,
you know,
that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, and there's a lot of high level guys, and you know, I wasn't that good. You know, I've always been a fucking warrior and a brawler and shit. But, and you know, and they'd love me for that because they could beat the shit out of me, and I'd come back for the next round. But you know, I wouldn't say I was skilled enough that I was, you know, giving them what they really needed either.
Okay.
Chris, if I could kind of frame this for Chris, because at this point, like, you know, there's 52 weeks a year. I'm in the Midwest. I'm probably going to, I don't know, 42, 43 events like a year. So it was like my every weekend thing. And if you looked at the dynamic when Matt was with, you know, Gurgel and all of them, like they wouldn't come corner him. Like I shouldn't say like, I wouldn't see some of the higher end people come corner him on the regional scene. He didn't have Monty Cox as a manager. It was kind of like, when he got to the Ultimate Fighter, it was like, all right, well, Matt, you just got to sit here and train and only focus on this. He became a completely different person. Like, I watched this guy fight, and when he got on the Ultimate Fighter, I'm like, okay, well, you know, they're kind of bringing him in to build somebody, but he's from the Midwest. We got to get behind him. Of course, I really like his style of fighting. But, dude, what you see right now, there's different levels, and I can explain how. Like, here, you go to Florida, you lose to Mikey Gomez. Your next fight, September 30th, 2006, you fight in combat in the cage, Chris Lytle. Mm-hmm. So, like, he's taken losses. Like, he was a 500 fighter that snuck into the UFC and became a huge fan favorite based on just the size of his balls. And I mean, I hate to be crass like that, but that's just the honest to God truth. And if you look at his fights, I mean, we can all agree there's very few people tougher than Matt Brown in the UFC. He out-toughs people.
Sure.
Well, hopefully I can outskill some people too. You know,
I mean? For sure.
that came at first. It was just a tough. Then that you learned the skill, man.
Yeah, I've developed.
Skill came later.
Here's the thing. I've always said with me is the difference between me and most of these guys. I've learned within the circuit. I didn't learn in the gym and then go fight. Like I was fighting before I even trained. I was in the UFC long. I mean, I fought, you know, I'd only been in the gym like 4 years when I was in the UFC, you know, for maybe 5 years at most, you know what I mean? Like I didn't come from a background or anything. So I'm learning on the job the whole time. And I've learned a lot and still learning, man, and still getting better. And I still have more ass to kick.
Matt, I'm sorry, Mike. Am I getting ahead of myself? Because I know that you moved to train with Matt Hume for a bit, and I
No,
want to
that's
ask about that.
down. That's later on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's later on.
Well, what I was about to
Mike.
say is he's more of like a throwback to like a training, with our guys up at Wisconsin.
Harry
right
Greb.
there. Huh?
Harry Greb,
Greb fighter.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, Dave, with like Dave Strauss and those guys, you get all those guys and they'd be there 2 weeks, be like, okay, you're fighting. And they'd start off, 1-4 because he was fighting them every weekend against guys with 30 fights and they had one, you know what I mean? So that's kind of more what you just learned the school of hard knocks and you just kept going in there and fighting tough guys and said, I'll fight this guy, I'll fight this guy. People don't do that shit anymore, man. They just don't they don't fight like that. That's not the way it's done anymore. This is an old school way. I like it.
Yeah, and back then, I mean, I competed in anything that I could, and there just wasn't a lot of options back then. If I could have back then, I would have done grappling tournaments, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, everything, wrestling tournament, anything. You know what I mean? I just wanted to compete, but MMA was the most accessible these days. And I tell all the amateur guys who come in this, I say, you guys should be competing every fucking weekend. There's a grappling tournament you can go to. There's a boxing match. There's amateur boxing matches everywhere. There's kickboxing matches. There you do MMA too, but you got to be competing as much as you fucking can. Most of them
especially,
don't. Fighters,
especially as an amateur, man. As an amateur, you want to before you turn pro, you should have had your back taken. You should be knocked down. You got to experience everything. You don't want their first time there when you're 8-0 as a pro. You don't. Trying to get in UFC, you don't have to like learn. Well, I don't do good in this spot, man. You better know that before then. But like you're saying, it was an option back in 2005.
Yeah, I think a lot of us guys back then, like we learned on the job, man, and and that's just what I come from. And it's been a blessing and a curse, but I just keep my head down, man, and bite down my mouthpiece and keep walking forward, man.
So let's talk about like going in other people's hometowns and fighting them. Like you obviously did that with Mikey Gomez. Combat in the Cage, September 30th, 2006. You fly to New Jersey to fight one of Ricardo Almeida's top students in Chris Lytle.
Yeah, that was a fucked up shit right there, man. That dude flies me in, this promoter guy, and then he drove me he picks me up from the airport. This guy never even got me a hotel. He drives me around for 2-3 days, handling all of his business with them. And I need to cut weight, and this guy's like, so he's driving around, he's eating fucking Wendy's, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll eat some chicken nuggets, I guess. I don't know. Like I got 10 pounds to drop, bro. But I don't know if I'd say I was set up, but he certainly didn't help out much, but yeah, I get in there and, Chris Lytle, props to him. I beat the fuck out of him, man. And then he finally got me in a good position and choked me out. I was still learning jiu-jitsu a lot. And I'm still learning jiu-jitsu a lot, but he's a tough son of a bitch, man. He was, I kicked the fuck out of him and punched him pretty hard. And he's like, fuck that, I'm taking this guy down.
So Lytle at the time was 4-5, but it's like if you look at his record, all of his losses eventually make it to the UFC.
Yeah,
I was gonna say he's good. Yeah, he's a good fighter.
It's
he was a lot like me. We were just tough guys out there willing to fight anybody, man.
I respect Lytle. I know he fought for Miguel on more than one occasion as well. Yeah, Lytle was a tough guy, 100%. So you hook up with Corey Fisher on October 30, 2006 at Fight Fest when you fought Jason Nicholson.
Yeah.
Do you remember working with Corey?
I don't know if I ever even talked to him. Again, that was my manager probably looked at it. I might have. I might be wrong.
Okay.
But that one was kind of funny too, because God, what happened? I can't remember the day that it happened. I didn't have a car. The day of the fight or the day of the weigh-ins, one of the two. I didn't have a car, or my ride got fucked up, something. And so I knew Jason's team that he trained with. They're here in Columbus. So I called up his coach.
Buckeye MMA.
Yeah, Buckeye MMA. I called up Rob Castrica. I said, man, I know you guys are probably driving up there pretty soon. Think I can catch a ride with you? And he's like, well, I'm riding with Jason. I was like, well, if I don't get a ride, bro, I can't make it to the fight. And He's like, all right. So, and then I don't know, he's about 5 minutes away from my house, and my aunt calls me, and she's going up to the fight, and she said, hey, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm waiting on my opponent to catch a ride with them. And she said, oh, we'll come get you. She was already in Cleveland. She said, we'll come get you so you don't have to ride with them. So she came all the way back. And so that's kind of the only funny story with that. But
that is kind of funny.
That is so regional MMA. I can't tell, like, Matt, as a promoter, I can't tell you, like, when guys like you would come around, man, I can't get the weigh-in. So I got to spend 150 on an Uber. Yeah. I'm like cursing at them, you know, but not at them on the phone because I need them to show up. But when I hang up, I'm pretty mad.
and
this is pre-Uber, man. There was no Uber.
Yeah, there's pre-Uber. And a taxi to Cleveland's going to be very expensive. But, you know, I tell everybody, man, that comes in the gym, all these fighters, that don't be who I was back then. You know, I would, especially when I'd go into gyms, I would just look for the toughest guy or the most prominent guy, and I just stare him down. Like, you know, I'm fighting this guy today because I didn't really know what training was. You know, to me, we go in the gym to fight, to learn how to fight. And, you know, it pisses me off now when I see these guys do this in my gym, but, you know, some of them do it. But it's same for promoters. I'm like, don't be who I was, man. Be fucking goddamn adult. Like, you know, you got cell phones and shit these days. I didn't have one back then.
Chris, I think this is like an after-school special. Like, kids, you'll end up like me. You know,
bro,
stay in the gym, kids.
It was a different time. You don't understand. It was just different.
Yeah. I'm like, don't end up like me. And they're like, dude, but you've been in the UFC like 12 years. I want to be like you.
Yeah. Never mind that, kid. Yeah.
Hey, just take the good parts of what I did, not the bad. You know.
Yeah. So there's better ways now.
I think this is why Mark Coleman, obviously one of the coaches at your gym. Why don't we give that a plug? I mean, if you want to train with Matt Brown, Matt, please. I mean, you're giving us your time.
Well, you may or may not train with me. You know, I don't just train with anybody anymore
at your gym.
But I'll tell you what, these guys that come in and they're consistent, they're loyal, they show the drive. I help all these guys, man. I'll help them as much as I can. Of course, when I have a fight, I got to do what I got to do. Got to be a little bit selfish, but I give these guys a lot, man. I give them knowledge that took me years and years of blood, sweat, and tears to learn. Coleman does the same. He's one of the most giving guys I've ever seen in my life, man. Just such a great person all around. And he helps these guys all the time, amateurs and pros. So, if you want a place to learn how to fight, man, we definitely got a good spot up here in North Columbus.
Yeah. I think, you know, the reason, like, your attitude that you've described is yourself coming up, I think maybe that's why you and Mark get along so well.
For sure. That's one of the reasons. And Mark gets along with everybody, though, you know.
Yeah.
If you can, you know, deal with a couple things. Yeah, no, he's great, man. You know, you just gotta put in the work, man. That's one thing I've learned about Coleman. I've seen you put in the work, he'll fucking show you the respect and he'll do anything for you. You're lazy, you just want to show up late, he don't give a fuck about you.
Yeah. You know, he's sober now,
and great, but not you.
Yeah. So Mark, I've known the guy for 15 years now. I'm most proud of Mark today than I have ever been in his entire career. You know, his sobriety. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest fight of his life, man. And he's overcame it. And I just want to keep him on that path, you know, and being around the gym, being around fighters is a huge thing for him, man, and helps him a lot, keeps his head on straight.
I've been around sometimes when just having Mark at, like, you know, when he comes and Josh Burns fight, Josh is a much better fighter, you know, just having Coleman around, it just kind of lifts people up, fighters. Like they want to do well for him because they respect him so much. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he has an energy about him that no one else can match, man. A lot of times, I mean, a lot of these sessions that he puts guys through, he don't even tell them no technique. But these guys work their ass off, and you want to work for him, man. And that's it. And that goes a lot farther than the most brilliant guy in the world giving you the best techniques in the world that you ain't going to use because you're not feeling the energy, man.
So Matt, we had Nick Nutter on, and in essence, he explained to us that Coleman would never ask you to do something that he himself wouldn't do. And Nick Nutter was on his first plane ride to Israel, never having flown before, after drinking all night the day before because he thought the fight was canceled. Shows up, and Mark, and he drops him off at the airport, goes, yeah, I don't have luggage. You're going alone. You're fighting Igor Vovchanchyn alone. And it's just like, I can't get mad at that because that's what Mark would do. You know, Mark would expect, you to do the same as him. And, to kind of further that, like you said about leveling up and pushing, he goes to Wes Sims's son. He goes to his, I think he's 9 or 10 years old. He goes to his wrestling practices and just, push-ups, sit-ups, stand up. It's just as intense with a 10-year-old child as he is with a pro fighter.
He knows the same for my kids, man. My twin boys, they come in the gym. Coleman will go in there with them. Once he gets in his zone, there ain't no getting him out of it. And that's why he's such a great competitor the way he is. But he'll put them through. They'll be in there for 2-3 hours just having a blast. Coleman's a blast to be around. And he'll put them through some shit, and they love it, every minute of it.
Dude, same with Sims's kids. Sim's like, hey, first off, Wes named his kid. It was Max Ruckus Sims. Initially, it was going to be Max Drago Sims, but Ruckus, I don't know how that kind of slid in. So, the kid's probably going to be a little off to begin with, but his kid, he's even telling Wes, I like it when Mark comes. And Wes is like, man, he really pushes you hard. Yeah, but I really like that. It's just that's what Mark does, man. He makes you level up.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, man. That kid, imagine that shit when we were kids, man, having a champion.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, you're gonna remember that shit for your whole life, man. And you're gonna look back on those days and be like, what the fuck? I can't believe I had that.
Hey, Matt, you mentioned your twin boys. We had a couple of guys, Antonio McKee, Chris Brennan, that are already seeing the second generation fight. Are your kids heading down the same path, or would you like to see that? How old are they?
They're 11 years old, twin boys. I got a 6-year-old daughter also. But my one son is obsessed with fighting and trains as much as he can. He loves it, and he's a killer, man. He's won a lot of grappling tournaments already.
Wow.
It's so funny watching him, man, because he looks like me already. He's got my complexion, same hair. Already looks like me, a skinny little fucker, and he makes the same mistakes that I made. I see his body language, and I see some of the same mistakes. I see some of the same movements, and it's kind of cool because, for one, I know that it's a mistake, and I can point it out and say, dude, I did that same thing. This is how you fix it. But he just loves it, man. And he runs all the time. He ran like 4 miles the other day just for fun, which is really like 6-7 miles, with those little ass legs. So,
a lot more steps. Yeah.
Yeah. Way more steps. Works out every day. He wants to break the world record deadlift for his age group and weight right now, actually. And he's only about 20 pounds away from it.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know how many kids are out there practicing deadlifting. I don't know what the pool is like, but it'd be a pretty cool little thing.
Eastern European concentration for that.
Uzbekistan people doing it, I bet.
Dagestan. Unfortunately, I don't, I'm a single dad. I don't have them often enough to, train them all the time. But
yeah.
It's great, man. He loves it. My other son, he loves football a lot more, but he's a pretty athletic kid, genius, 95th percentile in every subject. It's absolutely ridiculous. I told him, I said, you cannot be a fighter. You're way too goddamn smart. You got to do something with your brain, bro. You can't. Don't get hit.
You're going to have to fix your brother in a couple of years.
And
your father.
And the furniture. Fix the broken furniture, too, that your brother does.
Yeah. You better learn some fucking Floyd Mayweather defense, or
Well, man, it kind of sounds like they've kind of gotten that from you. Whatever they put their mind to, they excel at. You've got one scholastically and the other one in the gym. I mean, you could see that in your fight career.
He's scholastic, but he also is a great quarterback too. You know, he brings up every football team that he's been on, and you know, he's blonde hair, blue eyed. He's probably going to be the top kid in his class and the high school quarterback. He's going to be getting pussy galore. You know, just got to keep him on the right path, man, because he's got everything's too easy for him. You know, one of those kids, everything comes boom, just like that, man. It's so easy. Mother son, he just loves fighting. I put videos of him on Instagram every now and then, my stories and stuff. You can see he's just a killer, man. Dude does one of the best elbows I ever seen.
Yeah. I think the biggest destroyer of high school athletes is girlfriends. I mean, I coach boxing at a high school, and you know what I mean? I see these kids come by. I'm like, man, good looking kid, athlete, you know, come junior, senior year, you know, they're no sports, you know, but they got someone on their arm.
That testosterone is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So speaking of that, Real Fighting Championships, November 4th, 2006, you take another flight to Tampa, Florida. So you're kind of bouncing, you know, you're seeing the country, and you fight Matt Arroyo, future UFC veteran.
Yeah, so that one, I thought that was one you're referring to before. I didn't go to that fight to fight Matt Arroyo. There was a girl that I was training, and she got a fight in Florida. You know, there wasn't very many girl fights back then at all. So she gets this fight in Florida. I think it was just an amateur fight. So I was there to corner her. As we're driving to the weigh-ins, I heard the promoter's driving, and heard him talking on the phone. And he said, "Oh, our 170 is out." Okay, well, and I'm in the back. Right. I was like, I could use $400 or $500 tomorrow. That'd be pretty cool. So I said, let me fight this guy. He said, well, all right, let me call him and see. So he calls, and the guy says, all right, yeah, I want to fight. So you guys got a guy? That's great. You know, I said, well, I can't make weight. We're on the way to the weigh-ins right now. But I was only weighing, 182, 183 or something. And I was in good shape. Decent shape. He's like, yeah, the fight's tomorrow. So I get to the weigh-ins, and see Matt and everything. He takes the fight. Go find a payphone. I call my guy, and I said, hey, can you look up this guy and tell me, what he does or
who he is?
Yeah, who he is. He looks up. First thing he finds is him submitting black belts. He's a purple belt prodigy. He's submitting all the black belts. He's the next big thing.
Rob Kahn student.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, man. All right, well, I guess
keep it on my feet.
Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out. I guess too late now, right? But I got there, and I just beat the shit out of him, man, and knocked him out, man.
So Rob Kahn is not part of like the Dirty Dozen from the Gracie families. He's kind of like one or two black belts after that of one of, I think he's probably maybe the 13th or 14th black belt that Hoist ever wrapped around somebody's waist. He moves from New York down to Florida and just creates a dynasty, like a literal, like just a feeder system to the Ultimate Fighter and the UFC. And Matt Arroyo, who was an absolute physical specimen, was one of his top jiu-jitsu students. So that's who Matt agreed to fight without even really knowing his name.
On 24 hours notice.
Right.
How'd the girl do?
How'd the girl do?
Oh, she got the hell beat out of her. I felt so bad. And that was the toughest thing, because I was like, okay, I'm here to corner you, but after your fight, you got to corner me, And then she got beat up so bad she had to go to the hospital. And I remember being in the locker room, starting to get warmed up, and I was like, dude, I don't even have no one to fucking carry a bucket or towel for me, and no one to warm me up or nothing. And I still remember I met Howard Davis Jr. He was back there in the locker room. And I said, man, can you hold pads for me for a minute? I didn't know who he was or anything. And he taught me.
Olympic boxer.
Yeah, I still remember this day. That was the day that I learned the uppercut, hook, cross combo. That's what he taught me. That day there in the locker room, and I used it in the fight, man. It helped me.
Really?
I got to tell you, that's not a bad choice. I mean, you know, someone to hold your pads. You find a gold medalist, you know.
Yeah, and I don't know if he cornered me or not. I can't remember if I had a corner.
You know, his son, I mean, he's obviously since passed away, and Howard Davis left an incredible impression. Like, and he's a traditional boxing guy. In the MMA, he was one of the few guys that just embraced MMA, came over, trained with the American Top Team, and now his son took his spot over there. His son is, his kid's a real good kid. So if I had to kind of like look at your pro career prior to the UFC, you are about to do something that is incredible. You fly to Georgia and the ISCF in Atlanta, where Douglas Lima and his brother Diego have a school there, and you fight Douglas in the I think it's the main event.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What a fucking war, man. That fight's actually on YouTube too.
It's the only one I found, bro. Everything else I'm coming up with, I just had to read. I was all research, no video. Like, I hate going to interviews like this, but this one I saw.
Yeah, I want to see all my fights too. But that was a good fight. And I tell you what, the hype is real, man. That dude's leg kicks are the hardest leg kicks I've ever felt in my fucking life, man. Even from
Really,
guys. The only thing, I wore him out, man. That's when I just started learning how to clinch some, throw knees and stuff. Dorian had been working with me on that and showing me that. And that's what I kind of utilized against him to wear him out, pulling on that head. And
your clinch game was in full effect. Where did that come from? Like that Muay Thai clinch?
Dorian. Wow. 100% Dorian. It all started there, Dorian. Still to this day, I learn things from Dorian in the clinch. We still train it all the time. Still my favorite position to be in. And now, like I said, that was kind of the first fight where I kind of had the balls to use it. It takes balls to use a clinch, man. It's not, no matter how good you are at it, you're in close. It's not like you're boxing and you can kind of play the distance game and kind of stay away from things. Like, you're in there. And just like inside boxing, you got to have balls to get in there. It's good. You're running the risk of getting hit too. So anyway, so I finally started using that. And I think it just kind of wore him out. But from the distance, he was fucking breaking my leg. And, I beat him. But after the fight, I remember trying to walk out the stairs to exit the cage, and my leg gave out on me completely. I had to be carried out. And I still remember going to IHOP with George was there with me. He was actually cornering someone else, but ended up cornering me, George Gurgel. And
who else was cornering you?
I don't remember. I know George was there, and Josh Souter might have been there.
Okay. Because Gurgel, you hear him at the end. I mean, I didn't get and he's like, "This is the best I've ever seen you look." Like, they were so proud of you. And let me kind of frame this properly for people at home. Douglas Lima and his brother Diego, they're phenoms. Well, his nickname is the Phenom, but he came up under, from Brazil, comes to the American Top Team. Carino, was it Canero? Gave him his black belt. I mean, it's like, he's a special guy. Eventually, at one point, he was ranked number 3 in the world. I mean, not at this point, but later on. And he also won the PFL $1 million tournament at one point. Mm-hmm. So, like, this is a high-end guy. You're in his hometown. You're just learning the clinch game. And with the clinches, you're at risk of taking hooks, to the head. And you used it just magnificently. Like, you saw there was a change in your game at this point.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that was one of those fights. Again, when I took it, I had no idea who he was. I didn't know I was the main event. I didn't know how much I was getting paid, none of that shit. And I get down there and I'm seeing people wearing Douglas Lima shirts. I'm like,
his own gym there. He's got the American Top Team.
Yeah, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then, we do. I still to this day remember them doing the intro and him walking out, and the place just fucking erupts. It's all about him. I walk out and they're booing me, and I was like, it just fired me up even more. You know, I was like, oh, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of this guy right in front of all of you. And I happened to be able to get the job done that night. You know, it fired me up, man. And,
there was like no lighting in the cage either. They're like fighting in the dark.
Yeah. Georgia was a commissionless place also, where
I didn't know that.
Any ISCF stories? Because they had their own commission. That ISCF was like a mom and pop shop that did the commission work for people.
They were horrible.
Did they treat you any weirdness there, or you got out?
I didn't even know what the ISCF was. Or I didn't know I was fighting for a belt. I still got the belt upstairs, you know, and I didn't even know that I was fighting for that thing. I didn't know who Douglas was. I mean, I was just there to fight, you know. That's all there was to it. And you know, I tell you what though, in between the first and second round, that's when I knew that I won this fight. And
How so?
George yells at me. He said, "Look at him across the cage." You can, if you watch the video on YouTube, you can see him laid out, leaning against the cage. I don't think either one of us had a stool. If we did, he wasn't using it. He's laying against the cage.
Mentally broken.
Yeah, I looked over at him.
He was broken.
I said, "He's done. I'm gonna fucking murder this." And I was tired of shit my damn self, you know.
You ain't showing it to him.
Yeah, but I said, my body language ain't gonna be like that, you know. I'm not. That's not me. And I was tired, but I just bit down on my mouthpiece and I walked forward, and that's the way we do it, man.
Man, I'm noticing a theme here. Probably your last 5 fights, everyone you're flying to somebody else's hometown to fight. I mean, have you noticed that?
You still managed by the same guy at this point?
Yeah.
He doesn't
like you, by the way. I can tell he don't like you. What bad fight can I put this guy in next? You know, it's just, what's he doing? He's terrible. You're as bad as my management.
Yeah, I mean, again, and looking back, I could see how bad it was at the time.
That's all you knew.
Like a lot of guys back then, like, dude, I just wanted to fight, man. I said it all the time. I still say it all the time. I fucking love fighting. He said, "We got to fight." I said, "Let's go."
I'm going to tell you what's happening here.
Dustin wasn't really a manager. He was like, you know, he would set up the fights for you, but it wasn't like you wanted to fight. He's like, I got to fight in Georgia. No, you know?
This is what he's doing. This is what he's doing.
Strategy to it.
No, what the strategy is this. Give the main event to Matt Brown, and then we got 3 or 4 people that need easier fights that'll be on the undercard.
I'll get all them on there too.
That's what he's doing. I'll take care of your main event. I'll give him to you cheap. He doesn't give a shit, but I need 2 or 3 even fights from my other people coming down there. Like you just heard Matt say it. Yeah, George Gerzel cornered me. He normally doesn't do that.
Well, that was my next question. Were you paying a percentage for management services at this point, or was it like a handshake?
Should have paying you
50-50.
I don't even remember. I mean, I was getting $500 or something. I don't know.
Dude, okay. Here. So Diego Lima's 5-0 from Brazil, high-end black belt, tons of upswing, owns a gym. No one in the entire region will fight him. Yeah, I got a guy for $500 for you. Yeah. Like it's, you know, I mean, even back then, you probably should have got a couple grand.
Yeah, and I might have got $1,000. I don't know, but again, looking back, yeah, I see all this shit, and I understand the politics and shit a lot more now. But that's why I manage myself now too, partially. I mean, there is guys that I trust out there that I think could do fine. I'm in a situation now that it serves me best to just deal with it myself. But it's always been fucked up, especially back then. You know, it was the Wild West, man. And to be fair, even in the UFC, I mean, guys had to deal with Joe Silva. You know, he wasn't the easiest guy to deal with. So, and,
really,
Joe Silva. Oh, okay.
We've got a lot of people on here. They love him.
Not it. Nobody else has said that yet.
Yeah, Gray Maynard, Gerald Harris. They love him.
But yeah, you know, that's why I've always just tried to keep my attention towards the fighting and out of the politics, man. It doesn't interest me. And look, I live a good life. I support my family, and my kids live a good life. I got a nice home. I got a nice car. I'm a simple motherfucker. I don't need a lot of shit.
Got your coffee company?
I got my coffee company.
Hey, man, if you just go out there and concentrate on fighting, everything else takes care of itself eventually. You know what I mean?
That's exactly what I believe, man. That's
Well,
exactly.
you know, I don't want to beat the Joe Silva dead horse, but you know, putting
We're
a case
getting there,
together.
Miguel.
Well, putting
We're
a
getting
case
there.
together here, and I know I don't want to jump ahead, but putting a case together here, you walked into like you were perfect for him because you are a guy that doesn't
Fight
say
anybody.
no, and you know you could walk in as an underdog on there, and then also you got this blue collar humility, right? So it's like, hey, $2,000. It's like, oh yeah, you take it. You know, it's like other guys. So it's like you made it real easy for him. I think. I hate to say it. So hopefully your kid avoids some of that.
No, I totally agree. I'm exactly the type of person that makes Joe Silva why he is the way he is, because there's too many people out there like me. That's exactly the fact. I'm older now. I'm not, in top 10 or anything. Like they could cut me right now and it's not going to hurt their bottom line. So, my world's a little different now, but I have a good relationship with Sean Shelby. I think he treats me good. Dana treats me good. I make good money now. I think it's a little different, but back then, yeah, Joe Silva, I am one of the reasons why he is the way he is.
Yeah, but Matt, I talked about that before with me, and I was like, man, you learned pretty quick back then. You didn't have a leg to stand on. I mean, I remember I talked about the time they offered me the Tiki fight, and I was like, I need more money. I just fought for $2,000 against Robbie Law. I need more. And they're like, this is what it pays, Chris. And I said, I can't do it. They go, okay. And I hung up, and then I called them back 5 minutes later. I said, I'll take it. It's like, you didn't have any. What leg did I have to stand on? What leg did you have to stand on? I was happy as hell to be there, man. I was happy to be in the best organization in the world. There was nobody else who was going to pay me more than that. I mean, they knew it, and they had you. I mean, what could you have done? Nothing. So,
yeah.
What else is there to say? I just want to fight like you did.
And the unfortunate part is there was a lot of managers out there talking, especially back then, talking like they're doing their fiduciary duty, looking out for you. And not, they're really working for UFC, and they're getting a cut of your paycheck for doing Joe Silva, for working for Joe Silva and getting.
Yeah.
So it's just, it is what it is, and I don't have any regrets my damn self though. I fucking love what I do, man. I still say to this day, man, all this shit that I've done supports the lifestyle that I love, man. I get to wake up every day. I go on the mats, and that's my life. And so that's the dream right there. My dreams are true.
Do you want your 11-year-old to fight?
Do I want him to fight?
If he wants to?
If he wants to, yes. I want him to be a man with dignity and honor, respect, and to be a real fucking man, some character, not one of these 2000s babies, that are growing up all around us right now. That's all that I want from the motherfucker. And if he can do that, then I don't care what he does. I don't care if he's a fucking veterinarian or a fighter. I'll support you for whatever you do.
Chris, we're going to move on from the kid subject. I have to assume probably before the age of 5, Matt Brown's children were using their toys as weapons at some point.
I'd have to imagine. Yeah, I mean, a lot of broken furniture at the house today.
For sure.
Yeah, I confirm that theory for sure. But yeah, if they want to be fighters, that's all cool. Like I don't give a fuck what they do, man. Like my job as a parent is not to make them their occupation. My job is to teach them to be fucking men.
Yeah,
give them a good foundation. Yeah, good foundation.
So whatever they choose to do, they will succeed at, and they will be happy in life. And that's my job. So I don't care what the fuck they do.
All right, so check this out. This is where Matt's career gets bonkers. Like it's like if you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all. And your management absolutely is not helping you at this point. Jesse Chilton, Next Level Fighting. Chris, somebody you might know.
Jesse trained with me for years, man.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Tell me this. Who was that promoter? You guys probably know.
Next Level Fighting.
He was.
Is that in Indiana or Ohio?
It was Indiana.
Steubenville.
No. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right.
Is it Dan Severn?
No, I wouldn't have known if it was Dan Severn. Well, here's why I asked. That fight was supposed to be at 170. I'd drive out there. I was working third shift. I'd drive out, the weigh-ins are, 1 or 2 o'clock or something. I drive out at 8 a.m., get off my shift, cut weight, make it to 170, cut a good 10, 12 pounds or something, get to the weigh-ins, and he's like, oh, the fight's at 185.
Oh,
At this point, I was like, well, I'm here. Let's fight. So
that's rough.
Who was the
Wow.
promoter?
Are you talking to me?
No, do you know the promoter, Matt, or no?
I can't remember who it was.
Oh, you were hoping so we could blast him.
That's why I was asking. He's a piece of shit, whoever he was.
So Jesse's got a real interesting story. One, he's 7-3 when you guys were meet. You're 6-3. He's 7-3. Armbar is how he won in the 3rd round. I'm sure that size difference was enormous. Jesse ends his career on a 6-fight win streak and was probably up next to get called to the UFC, and he never fights again.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about him. I know him from that one day. He was a tall, lanky guy, and fucking I passed out and got triangled, and that's how, it was a triangle armbar is what it was. But
Jesse was legit, man. Him and his brother John, had twin brother John. They came to Indiana and started training with us from Kentucky. They were both very talented, very good. Jesse stuck with it a lot more than John did, and took it really serious. But then Jesse's only problem was he was athletic and he worked really hard in the gym, but every now and again he'd disappear. You wouldn't see him for a month or so. You're like, damn, what are you doing, man? You can't do this. You're beating good people. You're close to making. He'd be like, I know. And then he'd get with a girl, and then you wouldn't see him for 2 months, and then he'd come back and train his ass off for 3 months, and then once he just disappeared, it was like, I guess he's gone. You know what I mean? He just never came back. So it's like, what the hell? Man? He was so talented. Yeah,
he was
highly talented. Very talented.
Put the work in to make it, and he just never got the call. So
he got to the high end, and then just like fell off, man. It's hard.
Yeah,
he did all the hard work. You never even benefited from it. Yeah. So you lose to Jesse. That's on March 10th. May 19th, 2007. You fight in the Gracie Fighting Championships. Daniel Moraes.
Yeah. Now that's poor management right there. Moraes, if you guys remember that name back in the day, world champion jiu-jitsu. I was
world champion. Legit.
I was still a fucking blue belt, It was, and on that show, every American except for Vinny Magalhaes lost. Yeah, they set everybody up. There was Damian Maya was there. There's some other names you guys reckon. Kakareko, something.
Yeah, Jacare.
Like it was just a showcase for for them. And
it was.
They showcased me real good. I never felt jiu-jitsu like that in my life. I didn't know that it existed. That's when I still remember this day. That's when I learned. I said the lesson I took from that fight was jiu-jitsu is fucking real, man. I've been submitted before, but it was usually, gas out or get something stupid happen. I know it's real, but I'm talking. He comes. You got the stats there. It's probably a minute into the fight. He comes out, doesn't throw a punch, takes me down, past my guard, mounts me, arm bars me, methodical, Gracie style through and through, perfect. Props to Moraes 100%, man. He was a beautiful performance by him. I was a fish out of water.
Yeah,
but you know what? But you know what, Matt? I feel like in stuff like that, people like yourself, it's like you win a fight. I win a fight. I don't need to learn shit. I'm great, But all of a sudden, something goes wrong. Like something didn't go. I got to figure this out now and if that helped you level up, if you learn from a loss, and it's not a bad thing. I don't learn anything from my wins. I'm the greatest ever, maybe on a loss. That's when you learn something. So I feel like after that fight, you might have been like, okay, I got to take this jiu-jitsu a lot more serious than I did.
And that's exactly what happened. And take it more serious and try to get better guys and help me somewhat. Like I'm still not the best at jiu-jitsu. That's certainly still my biggest weakness, I would say. Is one of those things like jiu-jitsu, you know, I pick up striking stuff real quick. Somebody show me something, I'll hit it right in. Jiu-jitsu, I gotta practice that shit up. And I get bored, man. Jiu-jitsu to me is boring. I get bored. I have to practice that 100 times, and you know, I finally start getting it, and then I gotta, you know, start trying to hit it on the blue belts, and then find some purple belts, try to hit it on them, and then I usually hit a stall and can't hit it on no one ever again.
Well, you got two losses in a row right now. You got two losses in a row right now, and they're kind of, you know, they hurt. I mean, you got finished both times. Yeah. Where are you at mentally in regards to this?
I don't remember. I don't even know. I can't remember that time.
Now, at one point you said you were moving to New York and said, yeah, I don't know if this is happening. Was that around then or not?
Yeah. Maybe.
It had to have been, because you got one more fight. You got Dan Kobasowski on Fight Fest, July 6, 2007. And
it wasn't in New York yet.
But right after that, right after that, August 11, 2007, Keith Palmer was the promoter, United Fight League. You and Chris meet on the independent circuit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was exciting, huh? To me, that was my time. You know, I knew that Chris was supposed to fight Mike Swick, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Mike Swick, but he was supposed to fight UFC, and he takes the local fight instead, and I get to be the Huckleberry
in Indianapolis.
Yeah, once again on the road in my hometown. Yeah.
And Chris may not know, you know, he was one of those guys, especially at that time. You know, we put on a big pedestal. We looked up to Chris, man, especially me, you know.
Oh, thank you.
We all did. You know, he was a warrior, and we love that style. And yeah, so, you know, I was scared out of my mind, but I was ready to fucking rock and roll, man.
You know what's really funny about that was, you know, I was coming off the Ultimate Fighter, and I said, hey, I asked them if I could have a fight outside of my contract to fight in Indianapolis. They put on a fight. And they go, yeah, if you lose, you were cutting you. And I was like, all right. And then whatever. And I was supposed to, Keith wanted me to fight a guy named Tristan Yonker. I don't know if you remember the name.
Tristan
Yonker. And Tristan, I guess the UFC came back and said, oh no, that guy beat Clay Guida. You can't fight him. Get somebody else. I was like, all right. And then, like I said, Keith, he pulled you up, and I kind of looked into your record, and it was like what, 11-5 or something. I was like, all right,
7-5.
Yeah, like, all right, cool, whatever. And I guess I probably should have looked at who you fought. I didn't even look at it, you know. Keith, I just trusted Keith. So I'm like, all right, whatever, you know. And man, I remember when the fight happened, I was like, this is not what it was supposed to happen, man. Because I could tell, like in the weigh-ins, all that stuff, like this dude's for real, you know. He's coming after me. He's not intimidated by me at all. Like he didn't come to lose, you know what I mean? So yeah. I remember coming in, and you threw a couple of those leg kicks. I was like, man, it was just not going. I thought it'd be going easy, and it just was not going easy at all. And it was really tough. And I just remember somehow I got you in just like this choke from the top, and after it was over, you just see me like get off and kind of lay there, just like, thank God that shit's over, man. Because people don't understand. I mean, you fight in your hometown, it's not much fun, you know. The everybody thinks it's cool to be home. No, it ain't. Everybody, you know, is there, and they're talking to you, trying to get your tickets, and I didn't like it. And then I got this guy coming to take my head off and throw these hard punches. Like, man, I thought this was going to be an easy fight, and it's not. I did not like it at all.
Well, I guess that's something for you there. You know, you end up with the win, so
yeah,
that's kind of how it ends up. You know, I didn't know you were such a good jiu-jitsu guy. I thought you were a fucking brawler boxer. You know, you had pro boxing matches, and you know, all your UFC fights, you didn't really do a lot of grappling. You know, so I was like, well, I'm gonna bang it out with them a little bit and feel it out, and then when the time comes, I'm going to the ground. You know that. He ain't got no ground game. Little did I know.
Well, I was glad, because I had enough of the standing up, banging it out. I was like, this is, I mean, yeah, like I said, I remember my leg was hurt. Not remember exactly what happened, but I didn't like it. I just remember trying to get you to the ground and try and finish that. I was like, I don't want to be in here anymore. This is not it's not what I want. You know what I mean? It's just like, this ain't going to do me no good. A knockdown, drag out war with this guy. I don't like this. I remember that.
First, can you clear up a doubt for me? Keith Palmer, was he handing out $75,000 fight of the night bonuses?
Unfortunately, of that fight, I mean, I don't want to say all what happened, but I will tell you this: Matt Brown made more money than I did that night.
There was something with the venue. Yeah.
There was an issue, but things got all messed up, and there were some problems. But it's tough having good friends sometimes. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
I didn't know about.
That's kind of the joke. I didn't mean to bring up some sore there because I like Keith and I know you do too.
Oh yeah.
So I still want to say how many times my manager would tell me, you're making 1,000, you're making 1,500. He's really getting 2,000, 2,500.
And then would you have to pay the commission too?
What's that?
You'd have to probably pay the commission even though they got over on you.
Oh, Lord knows. I don't have any idea, man. I just love fighting though. So it always go back to that, man.
So Matt is 1-3 in his last 4. He's living in New York. And how do you get on the Ultimate Fighter? What's the process?
Well, I said, I think it must have been after I fought Chris. I was kind of like, well, I guess I'm, just not cut out for the UFC, so, but still loving the martial arts and everything. Girl I was dating at the time, she had family in New York, in Manhattan. So we had a cheap place to stay there, which, Manhattan's crazy expensive. So I got a job there as a personal trainer, just fucking applied online and got lucky. And it was a great job, man. It was amazing. Like I said, I trained actresses and models all day, and I got to pick my own clients or got to the point where I could pick my own clients. If it wasn't a hot girl, it's like, I'm not even training them. So it worked out pretty good. And then I met Dave Branch while I was there. He fought in the UFC. He was PFL champion, 2-weight champion. And me and him hit it off. We were real good friends, and I trained with him all the time. And that's when I really started to learn jiu-jitsu. He was a brown belt with John Danaher. I think he got his black belt while I was there. And that's when I really started to, my skills went up so much during that little period right there. A lot. It just really went up, and then just got lucky. They were filming or having tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter in Newark. So I took the day off work and went over, didn't have any expectations, didn't think I really had a shot of getting on or anything. And one thing led to another, and I got on.
No one made a phone call. Like, I figured like maybe Rich Franklin made a phone call for you.
I'll tell you the line that got me on. The producers told me after the show was over. So they do a little interview. They try to get at you, and they want to see how you're going to respond, when they start talking some shit. And the producer, Craig Pillagin, he goes, "You look like one of those guys that's going to walk away because your girlfriend, he's like, you're one of those guys obsessed with your girl. He's like, you ain't going to be able to stay for 6 weeks without your girl, are you?" And I told him, I said, "Dude, you can have my girlfriend and fuck her all you want if you get me on this show. I'll never look at her again." And he said that. He told me afterward, he said that was the line that got me on the show right there.
Are you still with the same girl? Are you still with the same girl?
I'm not. She's a great girl, though.
All right. Yeah.
She's an amazing.
A moment of brutal honesty. Matt gets on the show with a statement like that.
Hey, but you know what? You being on the show and everything, it didn't surprise me at all. And how well you did it, that didn't surprise me at all. Because, like I said, being in there with you, I knew, well, this guy's coming to fight, and I'd fought a bunch of guys in UFC. You know what I mean? So I knew. I mean, especially you talk about, you get in there and you get to train a little bit more and just a little bit more skill. You can teach that. You can't teach the scrappy fight part of it. You know what I mean? And I knew right away. I was like, he definitely had that. So that didn't surprise me. I was very happy how well you did, because I just liked how you're, like I said, I mean it. You're the way you don't care about all the little stuff, man. I can't. I don't understand the new guys, you know, they're just like, I'm not fighting him. He's right. I need this and I need that. That just bugs me to no end, man. I just like, there's not many real fighters out there. And I can just recognize that's what you were. And so didn't surprise me at all. When you went on that show, I knew like, you're tougher than all those other guys. You might not be a skill, but you were tougher than all those guys. I knew that.
Chris, they were scared. They were scared.
They were scared to death of him, man. They knew he was. I was like, he's
Matt,
a rough guy from the Midwest. They didn't. They were afraid of him, you know.
Well, I really embraced that show, man. That was the. I loved it, especially at that time in my life. I don't know how much I would love it now. I'd probably still enjoy it, but at that time in my life, they said, we're going to put you in this house, no communication with the outside world, and you're going to train all day, every day. And I said, well, listen, yeah. I said, what the? And I get to train
heaven?
high-level guys. I said, can I just stay here forever? You know, I don't need to leave. So I really embraced
a lifer.
Right. Yeah, man. A lot of those guys, it hurt them, man. They didn't like that shit.
Man, I know. I remember me and Matt Sarah talking about that when we were on there. People were complaining, man, I don't have my phone. I want to watch two guys. Like, dude, I've never had the opportunity to train with some of the best in the world and concentrate on fighting. I mean, I worked full time my entire career. I get to be here and train twice a day, cook whatever food I want, healthy, you know, work out with some of the best guys. I have Randy Couture and George St. Pierre teaching me stuff. I don't need my phone. You people are nuts, man. But a lot of people complain. You're right. It's nuts.
Yeah, I remember them talking about you after, and they were saying, yeah, this is the first time Chris has ever been able to focus 100% on fighting, and not have another job or you know, be away from the family a little bit. And yeah, I remember that was a big thing for you, right?
Yeah, it was cool. It was the only time in my career I got to do it, and I loved it. You know, I mean, I'm not sure what people complain about your phone. Whatever, man. TV, whatever. I love being there too. Not many people love it. A lot of people hated it, but I could tell you probably be the same with me. Just, yeah, I like being there.
No, I absolutely loved that, every minute of it. You know, some of the guys, once I lost on the show, that sucked because then you ain't got nothing to look forward to. You ain't got nothing to do. So I didn't enjoy that. I was only about a week and a half, 2 weeks left on the show.
Let's go through it. Let's go through it if you don't mind. So your first fight, Mac Danzig, standout student, Josh Hall.
I didn't know he was Mac Danzig's student, but that was, that was another situation where I felt set up. I don't think it was necessarily set up, but, you know, he was Rampage's boy for however it worked out. He knew Rampage, and Rampage was going to pick him first. And he's the biggest guy on the show. This is a 185 season, you know, so, and he's apparently a strong Greco wrestler and everything. So they say, you got to fight this guy. You know, we find out the day before that we're fighting on the show. They didn't do that on all the seasons before. So, you know, we get there, and I'm fortunate that I'm at 185 already, because I'm, you know, not a big welterweight anyway, but I'm, you know, that's what I walk around. That's 185. So I got to fight this guy. Well, they put Rampage's corner with me. So he's got his corner, Forrest guys cornering him. He's got Rampage's corner, supposed to be cornering me, really cornering him. He's got Rampage and Forrest cornering him. So I feel this energy. Everything's against me now, but I'm not fucking backing down. This is my time. And I was able to pull it out, man.
Yeah. So you stop him. You were, there was a really big size difference between the two of you. You had to fight to get into the house. And Dana White, after you got into the house, was so impressed. He's like, this guy is 9-6. He's like, this guy's 9-6. It was like he found a diamond in the rough. Like you could see just the boss was happy. And it was cool. I thought it was actually pretty cool. And I think you're right. I think the setup was against you. And Jeremy May, go ahead.
I don't know if it was set up, but it, you know, it could have been coincidental. You know, maybe they didn't know that he was Rampage's boy, but
I think it may have been. And I think
you weren't supposed to win.
Yeah, I think I can point out where, like, I think your belief is correct. let's go through it. So your second fight is Jeremy May.
Hold on. I got a question about the first fight.
Yeah.
How did it come about on the show? Was it like the team, did they pick you to fight him or did you pick him? Like, how does that part work out?
I have no idea. We didn't pick each other as far as I know. No one asked me. But we get there, like I said, the day before. Now, they had been giving us emails and stuff saying, be close to weight. So we kind of assumed that we had to fight right away. But no one knew that we had to fight to get on the show. But we get there, and I think it was that day they made the matchups. I'm not sure. I don't.
Or there was politics.
Did they give you a seed? Like, were you like, the 4th seed and he was the 1 seed or nothing like that?
No, there wasn't no seeds or anything. They just said
okay.
that you're fighting him, you're fighting him, you're fighting him. That's all that I knew.
Okay, that's cool.
So your next fight, Jeremy May and Forrest or Griffin is in your corner.
Yeah, and if y'all seen the video, Forrest was a little irate at me that time. And you know what? He had a good point, to be honest. I wasn't performing in that fight the way that I should have. And Forrest did teach me. After that fight, we sat down and had an actual man-to-man conversation, not psycho like Forrest usually is. And I learned a lot where I left a lot in the gym, because I trained so hard every day. And when I'd go in the gym, to me, it was a fight. Again, I didn't know how to train. I thought that we just fought. So I was fucking up a lot of guys on our team, hurting them all the time, and then I'd get in the cage, and I'd be burned out by then. So whatever's different, So Forrest had taught me, look, you need to calm down a little bit in training, save for the cage. And it was after that Jeremy May fight, because I think for 2 things. For one, Chris could attest to this, being in a lot of fights. When you're supposed to win, like when I came to your hometown, you're supposed to win. That's a different fucking pressure, man. And that's not a good pressure to have.
Oh, no.
That is not a good feeling. And me and Jeremy May had some run-ins in the house and talking some shit. Y'all seen it on TV and stuff. And now the time comes. It's like, you got to perform now, buddy. And I wasn't ready for that shit. But I learned my lesson. Still beat his ass, still knocked his head off, kicked his face off. But I did not perform the way that I should have.
If I learned anything, Chris, from this, it's you don't put lime juice in Matt Brown's chew.
That is chew. That's sacred thing.
Started a civil war.
Let me touch on that real quick. So here's where this the true story of that is. They edit that shit a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
So me and Jeremy had already had some run-ins, right? Me and him already kind of didn't like each other. He wasn't nobody in the house liked him, but I was the only one that was kind of, looking at him funny. Like, dude, I don't fucking like you, man. You stay away from me. And me and Forrest had already talked that if our guy wins, I'm fighting Jeremy May next. We already had this fight planned, and now he does the prank. So he's already on my radar. I already know this is the guy that I'm fighting. And now he does the prank to me. I'm like, no, motherfucker.
What was the prank? Refresh people's memory. What did he do to you?
He just put lime juice in my dip. And like,
okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and it was like
very offensive.
It still tasted fine. I mean, there wasn't nothing wrong with it, but the like my friend's done that to me 100 times since, stupid little joke. And we laugh about it, it is nothing. Like, if you're my friend, that's one thing. If we're in a house full of lions, I had to let them motherfuckers know I'm not gonna be the sheep in here, motherfucker. Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna, I've seen this show enough. I ain't gonna be the fucking butt of all these jokes, and you ain't gonna be playing pranks on me this fucking season. I'll fight you right here in this fucking house. Goddamn stairs, we'll throw you over the banister. So you just had to let it be known. And I think I let it be known.
Matt, you let it be known, but I mean, let's really look at the playing field. You've got an entire cast of people that have been given opportunity after opportunity that don't have a lot of fights, but they've just been kind of carried, by people that truly love and care about them. You're walking in with a 500 record, 1-3 in your last 4 against murderers. That's, and it's like, you haven't been given anything other than a bad shake by your management. And now, like, you're given the opportunity to fight a softer kind of like beginning pro. That's a recipe for disaster on their end.
I never thought about that way, man. I never thought about any of this shit, but I wouldn't say that most of them were. I think we had one of the tougher seasons out there. I don't think they were softer beginning pros. They might have had less fights, but
I think it was fights. They had less fights. That's it. You're correct. You're correct on that.
I mean, like Jeremy May, he'd been around. Like I knew about him before I was on the show. A lot of these guys have been around, man. That was a tough season, man. There was some real fucking savages on there. But
Gerald Harris,
he was fucking, yeah, man. He'd been around. And the one guy no one heard of, 1-0, Amir Sadollah, guy that ended up winning the season.
Killed him.
Yeah, we had no fucking clue, man. No one knew who this guy was. And he's in the house, he's a little dork, man.
Quiet.
Quiet, kind of dorky and a little quirky about shit. And
you're up a weight class.
Dude was tough, bro.
Yeah, it's up a weight class, but I didn't have to cut weight either, so it's a blessing and a curse.
Who's an interesting guy from that season too is Matt Riddle, because he kind of had a nice
one
run.
Of his opponents.
A lot of.
I think Matt Riddle, another 1-0 guy, but that son of a bitch, he could have been a champion for sure, bro. He had enough talent. He could have beat anybody in that house on any given day. He could have beat anybody in the UFC, man. That kid was a serious talent, bro.
He just couldn't stay away from marijuana.
He couldn't stay away from marijuana, and he didn't really take his training serious. He was a jokester. He fits right in the WWE where he's at now, or pro wrestling, whatever it is, whatever organization he's with. But man, that guy is much talent as anybody I've ever seen.
That's wild. Yeah, wow. I've heard that from several people. So speaking of, your second fight in the house, you've already said it, Amir Sadollah. Not an easy fight for you. I mean, it took it into the second round.
The third round, we went to overtime, right?
Second round. I know I watched it. I thought second, but if you're telling me I'm wrong, I might be wrong.
I thought it was the third. Whatever. I thought it was overtime. But either way, yeah, that's what I was going to say earlier. After I lost the last couple of weeks, really sucked because in that fight I broke my ankle, which is the reason he was able to get me into that triangle. And I broke my ankle. So now the next 2 weeks, not only am I stuck in this house, I can't train. I can't play ping pong. I can't play pool. I can't even write a letter, So
man, I have a question there. Like, had you utilized or thought about, what Forrest had said at that point about, trying to take it easier in the gym and peak at the right time? By this point, or had it not really had time to really sink in yet?
No, it sunk in then, and I had to do that with the mirror a little bit. Forrest really ran us in the ground. I think was kind of the mistake. I think he would admit to that himself. He really, like the amount of work that we did on top of fighting 3 times in 6 weeks, it was absolutely insane. I mean, in all reality, if you're fighting 2-3 times in 6 weeks, you don't really need to train hardly at all, right? Like you just need to work on tactics and maintain what you got coming in. And we were doing sprints all the time, sparring all the time. We're doing, 5-mile runs. He's taking he's just grinding our gears, man. But no excuses, man. Amir was the better guy that day. Me and him became great friends after. I'd go out to his house and hang out. We trained a lot, and he's just an exceptional human being all around. And that's one of the greatest things about the sport. One of the greatest things about that house is, you make some good friends for life.
We start with Chris. So we start with Matt having Forrest very vocal, emotionally attached to him. Like, come on, you got to change things up. And then with Amir, he's in the other corner. He's in Amir's corner.
Yeah, I just switched teams for, like a day or two before that. To be honest, working with Juanito Ibarra, the style was very different than what I'd ever been used to. Change things up a little bit. Zach Light was probably the worst corner I've ever had in my life. But
Former Bellator matchmaker, Zach Light.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you what, Juanito, I still use some of the tricks today that he taught me in those couple of days. That guy has some real good stuff.
Quick question: What's Amir doing right now?
You know what? I don't know. Everybody kind of lost touch with him, man. I
was gonna say I haven't heard him in a while.
I think
from what I understand, he comes from a fairly wealthy family, and I don't think he was overly interested in fighting, but it just kind of worked out for him. Kind of fell into his lap, and I think Dwayne Ludwig was his last fight, and he got beat up pretty good. And
forget this.
Yeah, I think he just don't. He comes from a little bit of money, and he's like, dude, why am I doing this shit?
Yeah, I can't relate. I don't know nothing about that life, so I'll leave it to him.
Yeah, his entire career was in the UFC. One of the few people that can say that outside of the old school guys that we talked about earlier. So the Tough 7 finale. How do you and Matt Arroyo get a rematch?
So apparently he was begging for me.
I figured.
Yeah, and of course when they called me and they said, normally you fight one of the guys on the show, in which case I got to stay at 185. I'd already told Joe Silva, I want to be at 170. I don't want to be fighting these fucking 185ers. Like, I'm walking around at 185. I bet at that time I was usually 182, 183. They called me for that. I was like, dude, I beat him on 24 hours notice. Like, this is a fucking perfect hit. What are you talking about?
So in between rounds. Now, this is the real question is, we started this interview saying that the dynamics in the gym between you and you're in a gym with a world champion. So there's a layer in between where you were at and where they're at. And now you perform real well on the show, and you're a little bit more polished now, especially on your pre-fight interviews. You're not where you're at today, but you can see you're adjusting mentally for the situation, and you're operating at a much higher pace than you were a couple years prior.
Hey, I'll tell you what, that's one of the great things about the Ultimate Fighter, in my opinion. It's a training camp for the UFC, having cameras in your face all the time, having eyes on you all the time, going through these. I don't know if Chris did this same thing, but we had watch parties. I'd get paid.
Oh yeah.
Go to different places for watch parties. So you're used to seeing yourself, and of course you're always your own harshest critic, but now you're your own harshest critic with all your friends around you being your critic too. And you just get used to that and become very comfortable with it. And I think it's a great thing for fighters personally.
Well, just like fighting, I always tell people interviews and being on the camera, that's a skill just like fighting. That's your sparring, going in every day and going in and out and having the cameras, and you get comfortable with it. And once you're comfortable with it, it's cool. When you're first there, you're like, yes, no, I say thank you. You're a shitty interview, you're terrible and all that stuff. And it's just like anything. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And the best thing to do is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, have that camera in your face. It helps.
Yeah. And if you watch my interviews from Ultimate Fighter, they were one-word answers, and they were
yes, no,
which is really
gonna punch them.
Which is really more naturally who I am too. I think honestly, having kids probably more than anything helped me learn how to speak better. I don't want my kids growing up being one of those people. You hear all these fucking teenagers all the time. Well, like, this is like, it's cool. Like, do you think like you want to do like this? My kids ain't gonna fucking talk like that. So example, and that was probably a bigger thing. But being on the show certainly helped too. And usually my answers weren't even, yes or no, and simple like that. But they'd say, what are you gonna do this fight? Well, I'm gonna fucking kill him. And then they'd stop the camera and they say, okay, you can't curse. Can you give us a little bit more than that?
I'm gonna
Like,
kill him
how
really
are you gonna
bad.
Yeah.
hit him in the face twice.
I mean, I don't know how many. Did my first 5-6 UFCs when you have to do those pre-fight interviews and they're guiding you through it.
Yeah.
I must have been there a fucking hour, man, because they're like, dude, you got to say something more. You got to.
Can you write me a line? You know,
Yeah, they're like, we got to promo this, man. I'm like,
Hey.
I'm gonna fuck this guy up, man. I'm fucking ready to go.
Hey man,
Is that-
it's horrible. It's horrible. We're doing the interviews now. You got that is stupid shit. But it's like, all right, I love it. This is so funny, man. I crack up every interview because you get. Well, I'm doing a lot of the bare knuckle, and you get a lot of guys, and they've had like one fight ever, you know, and it's like their second pro fight. I'm like, they don't, and it's not been at the UFC level. It's been a little local show, and they're fighting for us now. They don't have any experience. It's pretty funny, man. So they're like you or me at the very beginning of their career in their fight. And it's 2022. You know, it's a little different now. It's a whole different world, and they're still way back there. It's funny when I see it because it reminds me of us back in the day. I'm like, you just get better with experience. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And these interviews, like this is a very long form interview. Back in the day, we would have already been done because I wouldn't even be able to keep the conversation going. I'm like, yeah, I fought that guy. I don't give a fuck, you know.
next guy, I'll fuck him up too.
Like,
Next guy.
Hey, I tried a podcast one time, and I found what it did to me. I don't know how you guys do it, but when I was trying to do it every week, I got so fucking uninterested. I said, I don't want to fucking talk to no one. And I'd come home and I said, I don't even want to talk to none of you guys. I just talked for 2 fucking hours. I can't do this. So things like this now, I'm cool with them. I just keep them, you know, I got to wait.
Spaced out.
Yeah.
It's going to take me I got to get my brain refreshed. I got to cleanse it of all this shit because it's a lot for me, man. I'm not a big talker like that.
Coleman is too. Coleman's the same way.
Yeah, you're right. The cool thing about this for us, to be honest with you, is, man, I get to sit here and hear all about your story, man. And this shit's cool to me. You know what I mean? Hearing about, I mean, I'm not saying nearly as much as you are, but I'm just listening to your story and how you came, and like, it's amazing to me. You know, you're fighting all these guys on 24 hours notice sometimes and off weight classes in their hometown. Man, that's why we like this podcast, because these stories ain't going to be around the next generation, and nobody's going to understand this stuff. And we have to record this so people understand where the sport came from and how it got to where it is now. Because people like you and, you know, Coleman, all the people we have on, this is what we get. I like hearing this stuff, man. This is awesome to me. That's how I deal with it. We do once or twice a week, so it's cool.
And that's awesome. You know, different strokes for different folks. We would interview people sometimes, and I just didn't give a fuck. You know, like they'd tell me their story.
We've got a few of those.
It'd be the most interesting story I ever heard, and I'd be sitting there like, not like what? Like I don't trying to stay awake, man. It'd be the most interesting thing. But you know, I read books a lot. You know, it's weird. I could sit there. I read books almost every day. I could sit there and read for hours and hours. But speaking and listening, I get bored. These guys do the audibles and books and shit. I don't know how they do it. Listen to podcasts all the time. I don't know how people do it. But I can read all day, so I don't know. I'm just a fucking weirdo, I guess. But
so, Chris, the first time I met Matt, Coleman, obviously he's much different person now than he was then.
Yeah,
I got to do an interview with him because Mark's going to practice. Joe Rogan's actually contacted him a few times about going on, and he just can't put it together. So I'm like, all right, dude, I'm just going to come. We'll sit down, do an interview, run through some stuff. He goes, all right. He gives me the address. I go to the address and I go, all right, Mark, I'm out front. He's like, all right, I'm going to be there in 30 minutes. Just knock on the door. It's Matt Brown's house. Tell him you're there to interview me. And I'm like, you're telling me to knock on a guy's door that I don't know and say, I'm going to be sitting in your living room for 30 minutes before Mark gets here? And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to do. So I'm like, okay. So I knock on the door. Matt didn't even flinch. It was so it was comfortable because Matt's a good dude, but my God. Like, the tell-all book is with you and Mark Coleman in your relationship, because you guys are so similar. You guys really are.
You know, I still remember that too. And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, because in this sport, how many cheese balls do you get that don't have no experience? I I didn't know you'd been around the game. I didn't know you knew Coleman for years. I thought you're some fucking dork
idiot
from who knows where coming because you want to make some documentary or something because you got a fucking YouTube channel with 50 subscribers and
right.
I'm thinking, who the fuck is this guy? But then I talked to you a little bit. And of course, I seen your setup and I thought, man, well, this guy must have something. He's got a fucking production in here. So
he's got a credit card, is what he's got. He bought
exactly. Decent credit. Oh man, we couldn't get Mark to sit down like he was, drinking at the time. We couldn't get him to sit down. Matt goes off to the gym with this human being that was, man. So Matt is gone for about an hour, and we can't get Mark to sit down. I called up Sims. I'm like, Sims, you got it. I go, we're in fucking Matt Brown's house. I don't even know this guy. We're set up. I can't get Mark to sit down and talk. And Sims comes, he starts yelling at Mark to sit the fuck down, Mark. You got to answer these questions anyway. You're going to do it. It was.
It sounds like a normal day back at that time.
It was awesome.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Mark's hard to get to really hone in on focus on something. But once he does, it's off to the races.
Amazing. So Matt just moved into this house and we're helping move around boxes. All his books are shit that I'm into. He's got like boxing history. He's got all these like Jack Johnson books, and him and I started getting like arguments about the greatest fighters from like the 30s and 40s. Dude, this guy right here, the podcast you should do is a boxing history, mixed martial art history. Dude,
I thought about it.
I try to throw some shit at you going, okay, yeah, you're a boxing guy. Okay. I throw some stuff at him and I'm like, damn, he knows his stuff. No, you're an expert, dude. Legit.
Well, I don't know about an expert, but I find it very interesting. I watch it. I got a lot of books. Get the bookshelf right there, man. I read about it all the time. Jack Johnson t-shirt on right now, bro.
Dude, I got my Harry Greb on, bro.
I know. I seen it.
Nice. Well, hey, Matt, I'm going to have you one of these times come out to one of our bare knuckle fights and just be a guest of honor and hang out, man. I'd love to have you come to one of them.
I'd love to anytime. Yeah.
All right.
Those things are pretty fun, man. They're pretty fun.
Matt,
I've never actually watched one before. I've never watched it on TV or anything yet.
Oh, bro, they're good. They're very entertaining. I know Mike's a big fan.
Yeah,
Coleman's been to a couple of them.
If I had a guess, they're gonna be right up your alley too, man.
Yeah,
exactly.
If I had a guess.
So we got bare knuckle boxing now. When the hell are we gonna have bare knuckle MMA? Why isn't this?
There is. Jorge
Masvidal
has put on like 2 or 3 fights now down in Mississippi. Is the only place they're liable. He's put on 2, I think.
Okay, but now we gotta take it a step farther. Okay,
Headbutts.
We need headbutts, soccer kicks.
Hey, Matt, you know what's funny is every time we do this podcast and we talk to guys who fought before me and, after me, but I mean, everybody I ever talked to who was there around my time who did Ballet Tudo, or NHB Knowles Bar, and I'm like, you were here as the sport grew and it turned into what it is now. I mean, do you think the rules are better or do you like it old school? Everyone was like, oh, I like it. Less rules, the better. I mean, as a pure fighter, you're like, man, I like the headbutts. I like the soccer kicks. I mean, I remember when you can knee a guy in the head from the ground, when you get side mounted and you start throwing knees, they didn't just sit there and take them. They rolled over and then you got chokes. It made it a different animal. Even with headbutts, it opens up a lot more submission. So it's just the purer form, the better to me, I think.
And the big game changer that needs to be done, I might even just do it sometime, have my own damn promotion, fuck everybody else. We need no time limit, or at minimum, 15, 30-minute round. We don't need rounds. That's what fucks everything up. That's what changes the whole game.
Then it's about managing. It's not a fight anymore. It's an athletic contest about trying to win a contest.
Yep. You're just trying to win within the rule set, which there's nothing wrong with that. It still makes a great sport, and it's going to be accessible to some people. But also, the last thing I want to do is get rid of the cage, get rid of the ring. All we need is a boundary. A basketball court is big enough for you know, if they run up fucking basketball court, we push them back on, you know, whatever. Come on.
I had an idea. This wouldn't ever fly though. You have a cage, but it's like surging with electricity, so you can't really run into the cage because you'll get shot. Not to kill you, just to like, ooh, that hurt. You know what I mean? So then you don't lean against it. You know what I mean? You stay in the middle. Is that wrong? Is that too far? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just.
You guys may want to review the old Yama pit fighting show.
The old Yama pit fight. Or if you, hey, you could even electric or not. If you make that cage about 5 times the size, as big as a basketball court, right? Now you're not getting these guys constantly pushing against the cage. Have a real fight. Like that, maybe the cage could be there. So that is an option if that dumbass decides to back up 50 feet and run into it.
Yeah.
And you know, if it ends up there, it ends up there. But
so Matt, around this time, Tito Ortiz is yelling instructions to you outside of the Royal fight. Obviously, you beat him again. You know, no big deal. You hook up with Matt Hume.
mm-hmm.
How does that relationship start?
Rich Franklin was going out there a lot after Rich fought Anderson. He decided to hook up with Matt Hume. I don't know how he got a hold of him. I think it was through Monty, probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rich just brought me out there, man, one time. And
so you're bonding with the higher end guys at the gym at this point.
Yeah. So the first time I sparred with Rich, I still remember to this day, it was his first sparring session back from when he lost to Anderson Silva the first time. And the reason I remember it so well is because in my head, again, when I was in training back then, to me it's a fight. I said, okay, how do you beat Rich Franklin? You fucking clinch him.
You knee him in the face.
Yeah, so I thought Rich had a pussy ass clinch, right? Anderson made it look bad. Rich knew how to clinch. He just didn't have Anderson's level of clinch. And there was more than just a clinch involved in Anderson being able to clinch, et cetera. So I walk in, first thing, I just grab Rich's head. I mean, this is his first sparring session too, since that fight. And I just grabbed his head and started throwing knees. And Rich just beat the living fuck out of me, man. He dropped me in the corner, and I mean, he just beat the hell out of me. And I deserved it, I guess. I mean, you know, I was trying to hurt him. So, but again, I got back up and we went at it again. And he probably dropped me again. I don't know. I got back up, went again. And every time he hit me, I would come back and go again. So Rich said, oh, man, we need to train together more often. He ends up bringing me out to Matt Hume. And Matt Hume, I think he hated me at first because I still remember one of the first days that I went out there. He had a guy that was fighting that weekend. You know, this was early in the week. This guy's fighting that weekend, says, hey, you know, spar with him, but take it easy. He's fighting this weekend. And I just go in there and try to demolish the guy. And I remember Matt yelling at me. He's screaming at me, you know, you better stop it, you know. So then Matt gets in and then, you know, kind of taught me a little lesson. You know, Matt beat the shit out of me too, you know. But
is he deceiving or what?
So deceiving. He's such a master, man. He's a true fucking master.
Dude, we love him on this podcast. We talk about him all the time. Every chance we can, we bring him on, man.
Oh, you gotta get him on the podcast, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I was the matchmaker for his last fight. So yeah, I know Matt pretty well.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, you know, you talk about wealth of history in the MMA world. I mean, that guy, you know, is one of the originals, man. So yeah.
You ended up starting to go out there like regularly though.
What's that?
Did you ever move out there?
Yeah. So I actually moved out there. So I lived in Vegas for about 3 months. I just went out there just to train with Forrest. He invited me out there. You know, I was still single, didn't have kids or anything. So I wouldn't say I was really living anywhere. I mean, I had a suitcase and a car. So, you know, wherever I go, I would go. So I was out in Vegas for a few months. Ended up getting my, what's now my ex-wife, got her pregnant while I was there, you know, within those 3 months. You know, that was dumbass me. So I said, well, we got to live somewhere. She's not from Vegas. She's, you know, not from Ohio. So Seattle seemed like a good place for kids. And I get to train Matt Hume all the time. So we go there, ended up having my kids there, actually. there in Kirkland. Loved Matt Hume. Trained for about 2 years there with him.
Were you there during Jeff Monson?
No, Jeff Monson was not there. The big name, that was when I lived there when Sakurai fought Nick Diaz. So Sakurai was there a lot.
DJ
was an amateur still when I was there. We all knew he was going to be the next big thing, except there wasn't that division yet. There wasn't the 25, the small guys yet. They hadn't, WC hadn't been bought yet. Who else was there? Spencer Fisher was coming back and forth every now and then.
Jens Pulver.
Who else?
Was Aaron Riley there?
No, Aaron wasn't there.
I think Barnett?
Josh Barnett would come in and out also. He wasn't living there, but he was kind of in and out. He would come when he would visit Seattle. He would come in and train. Very brutal guy to train with, man. Even he just teaches you something and it hurts. I don't think he means to or anything. He's just a big, strong guy.
I think he does. I think he means a little
he's
bit.
kind of known for that.
Yeah, I love the guy though, man. He taught me a lot of good stuff. Actually, I really love that
for
guy.
Sure. No, the thing is every gym is like a little bit of a puzzle piece you got to fit in, right? Like I could tell through this interview that you got the right mindset for like the Hume camp, because they apply a lot of mental pressure as well as the physical, but it's mental pressure too. Josh, Hector Lombard was telling us Josh has people like, wash his car and stuff like that. Some of it you got to be able to deal with, Was it tough on you?
Yeah, that's a very good description. I mean, it was very much like that. Very tough training all the time. Matt pushing us all the time. Joel Jameson, strength and conditioning coach, who's if anybody knows, he's now pretty famous, but he was kind of getting his start and training all the MMA fighters.
He's a bald guy, right?
No.
Who's the bald guy cornering you with Matt Hume?
Maybe Rod Radford.
Okay. I didn't recognize him. Okay.
Yeah, Rich's boxing coach. But yeah, so I stayed out there for about 2 years, and we didn't know we were having twins when we moved there. We found out actually on the drive there that we were having twins, and so, but we already had the lease and everything for the apartment, so we're like, yeah, we got to suck it up, But with twins, we didn't have any help out there. We're just ourselves. So we ended up moving back to Ohio. But I wanted to stay out there, man. I wanted to train under Hume, and I wanted to stay under Hume for my whole career, man. And I still would love to go back out there. I haven't been out there since. I just didn't really care too much for Seattle as a city, which is why I haven't been out there too much since. But the training with Hume is the best I've ever had, I believe.
Wow. So Matt, you had explained you only like to use so many words a day. Like I think we've hit your limit. We've gone, over 2 hours. Can we do, Chris? Will we have like a little group chat that we put we kind of like prep for interviews and stuff like that? Because we do 2 a week. It's pretty intense schedule. And I'm like, dude, this one's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm like, man, I'm kind of hitting my little bullet points. Man, you're an absolutely fascinating character, man. 100%.
Oh God, thanks, man. I mean, it's easy to talk about yourself, right?
What about concussions? Yeah, too. What about concussions?
What about it?
Have they affected you at all?
The only diagnosed concussion that I had was when I fought Johnny Hendricks. It was like the first takedown. He got taken down right away in the first round. Slammed me, laying on my head, and I got up to walk back to my stool in between rounds, and the whole fucking place is spinning, and I'm seeing double, and went on like that. The things were spinning and seeing double for, I don't know, weeks after. And
oh man.
And finally I would actually, we kind of come and go a little bit, right? But
vertigo.
I don't know if you ever had concussions, but when you lay down, then you sit up, you lose all your balance, right? And I fell down a couple of times, and finally, my wife at the time told me to go to the hospital or to a doctor, And I still remember, I was like talking to my kids, and I would just stop and I'd be like, what the fuck were we just talking about? And that was what really bothered me, because I don't want my kids seeing that. But that was the only diagnosed concussion that I ever had. Other than that,
what have you been doing for maintenance, like to help out?
A few different things. So, funny enough, so I'm part of a Cleveland Clinic study. Chris might be a part of this.
Are you microdosing?
No. I do have some microdose stuff in there, and I actually do take it occasionally. I personally don't like the feeling of weed and shrooms and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like how it makes me feel, so I don't really do it very often. But I'm part of a Cleveland Clinic study. There was 700 professional combat sports athletes, boxers, MMA fighters. My score, this has been 7-8 years now. I've done it every year. I originally did it for the free brain scans that you have to get, to get approved by the commission. Well, my scores have actually went up over time, which is pretty fascinating.
Read a lot.
One of the things that I attributed to, after a fight, if I got a lot of shots to the head, or even after some training, if I get a lot of shots to the head, I take ketone esters and I'll do a ketogenic diet for a few weeks. They say that can really help the brain in traumatic brain injury. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. I stay healthy. I mean, I take all my supplements. I eat well. I train smart, train well. Took me many years to do that, but limit my amount of shots that I take in the gym. Train very smart. Train with smart guys. And I think all that stuff goes a long way. And like I was saying before, I read a lot. I think keeping the brain active. I meditate a lot. I think keeping the brain cleansed and active like that goes a long way.
That's all.
And dude, awesome.
Definitely agree with that.
And I want to take the microdose. I got this company, Synergy is the name of them. PSYNERGY. They send me stuff, and it's great stuff. But I have to take the right amount. If I take too much, or use like one in the morning, one in the evening, if I take it too early, you start feeling almost like you're tripping. I don't like that shit, man. I'm not a hippie. Yeah. I don't get into that shit.
Yeah, it's a stimulant too, so you got to be careful at night. You shouldn't take it at night, and it should be taken with lion's mane. Yeah, no, I love microdosing. So, Chris, we pulled strings in order to get one of your buddies on the show again.
It's what you do, Mike. It's what you do. Good job. So, I just got to thank you, Matt, for being here, man. It's awesome to get to talk to you a little bit. I promise here soon, I'm going to get a hold of you. I'm going to bring you down to Bareknuckle fight. You're going to love it. Only problem is, I remember first time I was like, Joe Riggs doing a Bareknuckle? What the hell's wrong with him? And I watched it, and about halfway through the fight, I was like, how do I get a hold of these guys? I got to try it once, So I did 3 of them, and I had to try it. And after that's like, I kind of like this stuff. So that's the only problem. Don't start liking it. So
short rounds.
Huh?
Short rounds, right?
2-minute rounds, dude. They just want action. They want people to go in there and fight. 5 2-minute rounds. It's nothing really, but it's tiring. It is something. And they start you 3 feet apart. It's awesome, dude. It's just fight. Go.
How big is the ring?
Like action.
How big is the ring?
Oh shit.
Is it a full size?
Not that big.
Was it a 24-foot circle?
No, it's not 24 foot. It's a circle. It's a squared circle. Okay. It's not that big, and the ropes aren't ropes. They're like metal. So it's pretty interesting, man. You'll see when you go there. You'll like it. Like, damn, this is fun to watch. So
I'll check that out. I need to watch it on TV. I just ain't never checked it out on YouTube or something.
Man, it's like going to UFC 3 or 4. It's literally you're going back to the early UFCs, and you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I'll tell you, David Feldman is doing an amazing job.
Well, like you said, those people there, it's not an athletic contest yet where people are trying to outpoint people. Usually people just trying to, we've had a couple of fights where we've had 11 fights, all 11 fighted in by knockout. They didn't make it to the 4th round.
It was a phenomenal card. Yeah.
You were there for it.
Matt, it's like your early days. I'm not, subtract the drugs, obviously, but it's literally fight. Who's the toughest guy in the bar.
People are fighting, man. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Somebody contacted me to do bare knuckle, actually.
Really?
I can't. I didn't check with UFC.
Probably Nate Shuck, probably.
Yeah, I didn't even really talk to him or anything. I was like, No, I got a UFC contract. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what?
If I wanted to.
You couldn't, no. But well, that's cool, man. Like I said, I'll get a hold of you sometime. Have you come, man. Thank you for your time. It's been fantastic. You did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
For sure, thanks, definitely. I want to thank you. And I did want to bring up he's fighting again in March with the UFC, and I think Brian Barberena. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
So with that kind of good luck, it's always a treat. We're a history podcast, but always a treat to get guys that are still in the UFC and still going hard, because the mindset and stuff is a little bit more edgy. And Matt, thank you very much, man. Man, have you matured from, getting coked up before fights to, not liking mushrooms or weed or anything like that, keeping your body like a temple, man? Awesome. Thank you very much for everything.
Love it.
Whoa. Man, Matt Brown taking home the brass ring. I don't know, man. That was some serious shit we talked about there, huh?
Miguel, I think we've got an early entry into the 2022 interview of the year. I think, Matt planted his flag, and it's going to be a hard one to beat. I mean, that was Ian Heinich level chaos.
Yeah, and I like the homegrown chaos. You know what I mean? It's like Ohio. I did shows in Indiana. I lived in Pennsylvania for a long time. That's like I know guys like that. You know what I mean? And I think that what you see is what you get with Matt Brown, and what you have is you got the hardworking guy there, but a guy who's adapted himself from doing fights all coked up with no training to now being on. I don't know. It's funny to me. It's like
I did a couple lines.
I didn't like coke as much
as
meth. It's like, if you really have to choose between the two, I don't understand. But anyway, but yeah, to go from that to where he is now, and he said he's not in the top 10, but he did, was a top 10 fighter in his heyday, and he's still dangerous for anybody. And
he's mean
at a world-class level, level still. So yeah. I don't think he has, he doesn't think about it. He's not, he's all guts and instinct. I like that.
So to expand on one of the conversations that we had, Miguel, we've had Jonah Williams, sit in with us a few times, during the Chris Lytle Pancrase years interview.
That's your guy, but Jonah's my guy too. I like Jonah. Jonah's
people.
The guy. Yeah.
So Jonah on his own time in Dime drove all the way to Ohio to help me with kind of get a couple reps in with Mark Coleman. And Jonah was the guy I knew Matt I've met him a couple times. He's kind of not a mean guy, but he comes off with that aura where
when you showed up at his house, he didn't offer you a drink, did he? You want to call?
No. He gives you the aura where that in-ring persona is not an act. It seems like he can kind of flip that switch whenever. And I think we've experienced, that during the interview, that it's entirely possible. And I'm like, all right, Jonah, here's the situation, dude. You're going to knock on that door, not me. because I'm much more well-versed at calming a situation down in case punches are thrown. And you're bigger than me, you could probably take a punch a little bit better. So we're going to send you up there, that's for the best of the both of us. So, no, it was, oh my God. I remember telling people, I'm like, I don't even know how to tell this story. I met Matt Brown because I had to talk to Mark Coleman, and Mark made me show up at his house without really talking to him about what we were doing. Yeah. It's uncomfortable.
Lucky you're not doing door to door.
No. So, ladies and gentlemen, Abu Dhabi Jiu-Jitsu Pro. It's in Orlando. I am hosting that. It's April 16th, and you can register on SmoothComp. By doing that, it really helps us out. It's both gi and no gi, and it helps us out. So, Miguel, Matt Brown is in the books, and what a savage. And dude, he hit a home run. He does not do a lot of interviews. He did Joe Rogan. That's more of a conversation. Ours is, obviously, I mean, a phenomenal conversation at that. Ours is kind of structured with
I think we're gonna have
goals
to do that, Mike. I think we're gonna have to tell our guests that if they're gonna do us, they can't do Rogan.
No, they're gonna have to choose. Yeah, they're gonna have to choose between the two of us.
But
no,
obviously, Matt, is gonna during his heyday and stuff, he'd make a great interview for Rogan. They could talk about non-fight stuff and have a great time. But he was ours for 2 hours, and it was one of the better interviews. We're starting off 2022 very strong.
Yeah, Ian Heinich was amazing, guys. If you haven't listened to that one, it's bonkers. Like, it is off the wall bonkers. And when Matt Brown starts, we're talking about him witnessing a murder and doing coke and meth and dying from heroin. And unlike other interviews, we dug in on those topics, as well as his family. Man, that was awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. No, I think people are embracing the podcast, the honesty of it, and getting behind the scenes. I got a couple of people that were lining up with some stories like that. When you get into it, it's more than just fighting; it's real life.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, please hit like, share, subscribe. By doing that, it helps us out immensely, and we can continue providing this type of content for you. So, I mean, it's Miguel. Who do we got lined up? Who do we got, Miguel?
I don't like to talk to them until they're recorded, Mike.
I know.
But I think Jeremy Horn's going to be the next Chris Brennan person where we're going to break out the career over the course of time. I think Jeremy's, a suitable victim, right? If anybody's career deserves the scrutiny, it's him. I think where he won't fall short with Brennan too is also in his ability to tell a story and remembrances and little things like that. And he's also another guy who's been around the world with this stuff. So I think Jeremy is one I'm looking forward to for February, a repeat customer, but we're going to really dig in with him because the first one's kind of superficial.
Absolutely. Awesome. Love you, Miguel. I thought that was a home run, and we're going to try to keep keeping our guys coming up to bat, start cracking some other home runs after this. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can like, share, subscribe. I know I keep repeating that, but it really helps us out.
At some point, Matt Brown's coming back to talk about the rest of his career too,
dude.
Which very, very much an enjoyable situation. So
I think we got some Joe Silva stories happening with him.
You like that, don't you? All right.
I do.
Well, thank you very much, Matt Brown, and we're in the books.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.